Greetings, Loremasters. Tonight, our chronicle covers the entities that sit just outside the peripheral vision of your morality, the beings who view our mortal struggles as nothing more than a complex board game played with pieces that bleed. We're turning our gaze to the darker corners of the Orbis, to the Daedric Princes, and specifically the harsh, uncomfortable truths about who and what they really are. Close your eyes and picture the obsidian expanse of Oblivion, these swirling nebulae of magic that defy physics, and the terrifying grandeur of the entities that call this void home. Let's be honest, you probably wouldn't survive a trip to Coldharbour without some serious enchanted gear, and definitely not with that rusted iron dagger you picked up in the Helgen Keep. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, go ahead and drop your location and local time in the comments. I always love seeing just how far these stories travel across our own realm. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. We begin our descent into the abyss with perhaps the most unsettling entity in the entire pantheon, the King of Rape, the Harvester of Souls, the Lord of Domination himself, Molag Bal. If we are looking for brutally honest truths, the first one we must acknowledge is that Molag Bal is, quite literally, the absolute worst landlord in all of Oblivion. When we think of evil in a high fantasy setting like the Elder Scrolls, we often default to destruction or chaos, things that are loud and explosive. But Molag Bal represents something far more insidious, something that creeps under your skin and stays there. He doesn't just want to kill you. Killing you is boring. Killing you ends the game. No, he wants to own you. He wants the deed to your soul signed in blood and notarized with suffering. Consider the very geography of his realm, Coldharbour. It is a visceral representation of his personality. It is widely accepted in lore that Coldharbour is a distorted copy of Nirn, specifically Tamriel, but it is a copy made by someone who hates the original material but covets the ownership of it. The sky is burning with cold blue fire, the ground is sludge, the air smells of burning death and decay. It is the ultimate fixer-upper that will never be fixed because the landlord thrives on the squalor. He is the slumlord of the cosmos. He looks at the vibrant, chaotic beauty of mortal existence and thinks, I could structure that, I could put chains on that, I could make that hurt. In the Elder Scrolls Fifth, Skyrim, players get a very intimate, very claustrophobic introduction to this truth during the quest, the House of Horrors in the city of Malacath. This is a core experience for almost every Dragonborn, often stumbled upon by accident. You walk past the abandoned house, you see vigilant Tyrannus, and you think you're just going to root out some minor Daedric activity. It feels routine. But the moment you step inside, the doors lock. That sinking feeling in your stomach, that's Molag Bal's handshake. He forces you to bludgeon a priest of Boethiah into submission with a rusty mace. It's not a glorious battle. It's gritty, it's mean, and it feels dirty. You aren't a hero in that moment. You're just another tool in his toolbox. And that is the brutally honest truth about him. To Molag Bal, you are never a protagonist, you are property. The horror of Molag Bal lies in his specificity. He is the prince of schemes. Yes, but his schemes are always about hierarchy. He must be at the top, and you must be at the bottom, preferably crushing your face into the mud. There is a terrifying intimacy to his brand of evil. Unlike Dagon, who might stomp on a city like a toddler knocking over blocks, Molag Bal wants to look you in the eye while he breaks your spirit. He is the abusive partner who tells you that you are nothing without him, magnified to a cosmic scale. He feeds on the anguish of mortals not just for sustenance but for sport. It is a dominance hierarchy that spans infinite dimensions, and he is perpetually sitting on the throne looking down. However, if we dig a little deeper into the dusty libraries of obscure lore, we find something even stranger about the Lord of Brutality. There is a fascinating, lesser-known tidbit suggesting that in a previous Kalpa, a previous cycle of the universe, before the current reality formed, Molag Bal was the chieftain of the Druch. We know the Druch today as those crab-like aquatic monstrosities you might fight in the waters of Vardenfell or the caves of Cyrodiil. But in the Ruddy Man mythos, referenced in the 36 Lessons of Vivec and other esoteric texts, Molag Bal was their king in a distinct horrific form. He ruled over a world called Lig, which is often described as an adjacent place, or a shadow of Tamriel. This implies that his desire to dominate and rule over a distorted version of the world isn't new, it's his oldest habit. He has been playing this role of the tyrannical chieftain since before time as we know it began ticking. It paints him not just as a god, but as a relic, a creature holding onto a primal oceanic grudge from a universe that no longer exists. This connects to a fiercely debated topic within the lore community, the nature of Molag Bal's love. In his own twisted philosophy, domination is love. To dominate something is to know it completely, to encompass it, to make it part of yourself. There are fans who argue that Molag Bal doesn't understand the difference between love and possession. When he speaks to the Dragonborn or the Vestige in the Elder Scrolls Online, there is a possessive quality to his voice. He calls you little mortal, almost affectionately, before he tries to steal your soul. This creates a disturbing dynamic where his acts of torture are, in his mind, acts of validation. He is paying attention to you, and to a narcissist of divine proportions, his attention is the greatest gift he can bestow. This brings us back to the concept of the worst landlord. Imagine living in a world where the very ground you walk on hates you, where the sky is trying to crush you, and where the ruler demands not just your taxes, but your absolute weeping submission. That is the reality of serving Molag Bal. Even his greatest champions, the vampire lords, are ultimately just cattle to him. He created vampirism not as a gift of immortality, but as a mockery of life and death, a way to spite Arche, the god of the cycle of life. If you accept his gift, you are simply trading your mortality for eternal servitude in a hierarchy where upward mobility is impossible because the ceiling is made of his boot. The brutality of Molag Bal is also bureaucratic. If you look at the administration of Cold Harbour, specifically in the time of the Plane Meld, it is filled with Dremora who are constantly vying for favour, betraying one another, and managing the flow of Sol Shriven. It is a corporate nightmare. It is the ultimate depiction of a toxic workplace environment. You are constantly being evaluated, punished, and reshuffled. There is no rest. In other realms, like Hircine's hunting grounds, you might at least get the thrill of the chase. In Sanguine's realms, you might get a drink even if it kills you. But in Cold Harbour, you get work, you get toil, you get the endless grinding sensation of being worn down until there is nothing left of who you used to be. And let's not forget the sheer pettiness of this prince. For a being of infinite power, he holds grudges with surprising fragility. Look at how he treats a house in Malacath just because a priest of Boethiah walked into it. He dedicated a significant amount of his divine attention to corrupting a single building in a stone city just to make a point. It proves that no victory is too small for him, provided it involves someone else losing. He is the micromanaging boss who stands over your shoulder, critiquing your keystrokes, except the keystrokes are your moral choices and the critique involves a rusty mace. This truth, that Molag Bal is the ultimate oppressor, is fundamental to understanding the Daedra. They are not just monsters, they are reflections of the darkest parts of the psyche. Molag Bal is the reflection of the desire to control others, to strip away their agency until they are nothing but extensions of your own will. It is a terrifying mirror to hold up, which is perhaps why he is such an effective villain. We all understand the fear of losing control, of being trapped in a lease we can't break, under a landlord who holds all the keys. As we drift away from the cold, blue fires of his realm, let the image of that rusty mace fade into the shadows. We leave the House of Horrors behind, the door clicking, shut, unlocked, finally, allowing us to step back into the cool night air of Skyrim. But as we walk down the stone streets, the echo of his voice remains, a reminder that for some entities, power is the only currency, and pain is the only language they bother to speak. From the cold, suffocating grip of Molag Bal, we turn our attention to a heat that is far less calculating, but infinitely louder. If Molag Bal is the creeping dread of a nightmare you can't wake up from, our next subject is the sudden, jarring explosion of a bomb going off in your living room. We are speaking, of course, of Mehrunes Dagon, the Prince of Destruction, Change, Revolution, and Energy. But if we are being brutally honest tonight, we might as well call him the Prince of Ambition without a solid exit strategy. You know the type. We all have that one friend who starts a massive project, stripping the engine of a car, tearing down a wall in their house, deciding to brew their own mead, with absolute frantic enthusiasm, only to realise halfway through that they have no idea how to put it back together. Mehrunes Dagon is that friend, but instead of a half-assembled carburetor on the lawn, he leaves behind shattered empires and broken metaphysical barriers. He is the cosmic embodiment of seemed like a good idea at the time. The brutal truth about Dagon is that for a being with 4 arms, he has a terrible time holding on to a victory. Look at his track record. He is arguably the most successful prince in terms of raw impact on Tamrielic history, yet he never actually wins. The Oblivion crisis, the central conflict of the Elder Scrolls IV, Oblivion, was his magnum opus. He managed to assassinate the Emperor, extinguish the dragonfires and open stable portals to the Deadlands all across the continent. He literally stepped physically onto the mortal plane in the Imperial City, a feat almost unheard of. He was at the finish line, the ribbon was across his chest, and then he got banished by a desperate heir and a statue of a dragon. He did all the heavy lifting, destroyed the barriers between worlds, and ultimately just paved the way for the 4th era to start without him. He's the guy who kicks down the door, screams "I'm here," and then immediately trips over the doormat. This clumsiness stems from his very nature. Dagon is change. He is revolution. The problem with being the avatar of revolution is that you are defined by what you are overthrowing. Once the thing is overthrown, your purpose becomes murky. If Dagon actually won, if he merged Nirn with the Deadlands, he would likely be incredibly bored. He is the dog chasing the carriage. He wouldn't know how to drive it if he caught it. His realm, the Deadlands, reflects this lack of nuance. It's all lava, spiky towers and red sky. It's the heavy metal album cover of Dimensions. It's aesthetically committed, sure, but it lacks the complex, twisted bureaucracy of Cold Harbour or the alien beauty of the Shivering Isles. It's just distinctively on fire. It screams "I am bad," which lacks the sophistication we see in some of his siblings. However, to dismiss Dagon as merely a brute with a penchant for arson is to ignore one of the most fascinating and tragic pieces of obscure lore in the entire setting. This brings us to the Leper Demon King. According to the 7 Fights of the Eldudaga, a collection of Nord-centric mythological texts, Mehrunes Dagon wasn't always the Prince of Destruction. In a previous Kalpa, again, those cycles of time that reset the universe, he was a distinct entity known as the Leper Demon King. His role wasn't to destroy, but to preserve. He would leap across the boundaries of the world, hiding bits and pieces of creation from Alduin, the World Eater, so that they wouldn't be consumed when the cycle restarted. He was a cosmic hoarder, saving the furniture of the universe because he loved it. The story goes that Alduin eventually caught on. He realised the Leper Demon King was stealing pieces of the world to carry over into the next cycle, making the meal of the world smaller each time. Cursing the Leper Demon King, Alduin stripped him of his jumping ability and transformed him into Dagon, cursing him to destroy the very pieces of the world he had tried to save. He was told that only once he had destroyed all the stolen pieces could he regain his true form. This recontextualizes everything. The brutal truth shifts from incompetence to tragedy. Dagon isn't smashing the world because he hates it. He's smashing it because he's desperately looking for the parts he hid, trying to reverse a curse that forces him to ruin the things he once loved. He is a prisoner of his own destructive mandate, frantically tearing apart the house to find the keys he lost eons ago. This duality fuels a massive debate within the lore community regarding the true purpose of the Mythic Dawn cult. On the surface, Mankar Cameron, the primary antagonist of Oblivion, sounds like a raving lunatic. He preaches that Tamriel is actually just another plane of Oblivion belonging to Dagon. But if you listen closely to his commentaries on the Mysterium Xarxes, specifically the speeches he gives in his Paradise, he argues for liberation. He argues that the mortal world is a trap and Dagon is the liberator. Fans often debate whether Dagon is a necessary evil. Without the Oblivion crisis, the Septim dynasty, which had arguably grown stagnant and weak, would have limped on. The Empire was crumbling from within. Dagon's invasion forced a hard reset. It ended the Third Era and birthed the Fourth. In a twisted way, did he actually save Tamriel from stagnation? Did the Prince of Destruction accidentally perform the most violent controlled burn in history, allowing new growth to emerge from the ashes? It's a comforting thought, imagining that there is a method to the madness. But then you look at the day-to-day reality of his followers, and you remember the incompetence. Think about the Mythic Dawn sleeper agents. They were everywhere. Shopkeepers, guards, neighbours. They had the element of surprise. They had Daedric armour summoned from thin air, and yet they were constantly thwarted by a single prisoner who happened to be in the right jail cell. Dagon's forces are defined by their arrogance. A Dremora Valkinaz will monologue at you about your inferior mortal flesh right up until the moment you paralysis poison him and push him into a lava pit. They inherit their master's lack of foresight. They are so convinced of their inevitable victory that they forget to actually secure the win. There is also a distinct lack of subtlety in his artifacts. Take Mehrunes' razor. It's a dagger that has a chance to instantly kill anything it touches. It is the ultimate I win button. But think about the randomness of it. It's not a weapon of skill, it's a weapon of gambling. It encapsulates Dagon's chaotic nature perfectly. You might stab a mud crab and send its soul straight to the void, or you might slash at a dragon for 20 minutes with the razor doing nothing more than giving it a close shave. It's unreliable, flashy, and devastating when it works, just like the prince himself. Furthermore, we have to address the aesthetic monotony of his ambition. Dagon wants to merge Nirn with the Deadlands. But have you seen the Deadlands? It's terrible real estate. There is no water, only magma. There are no trees, only spittlesticks and Harada which try to kill you. If Dagon succeeded, where would he put all the mortals? The infrastructure just isn't there. This reinforces the idea that he hasn't thought this through. He is like a conqueror who captures a city and then realises he doesn't know how to run the sanitation department. He wants the crown, but he has no interest in the kingdom. Even in Skyrim, his quest is a comedy of errors. He demands you reassemble the razor. You go through all the trouble of finding the pieces, dealing with the keepers, and bringing them to his shrine. And what does he do? He tells you to kill Silas Vesuvius. Silas is annoying, sure, and a bit of a fanatic, but he's also the only guy explicitly on Dagon's side in that immediate vicinity. Dagon asks you to kill his own fan club president just to prove a point. It shows that Dagon has zero loyalty. To him, pawns are not resources to be spent wisely. They are toys to be broken when he gets bored. It's self-sabotage disguised as dominance. He cuts off his own support network constantly because he prefers the visceral thrill of a betrayal over the long-term benefits of an alliance. So, as we watch the red portals close and the skies return to their normal starry state, we are left with a picture of a prince who is less a mastermind and more a force of nature, a hurricane with an attitude problem. He breaks things because he must. He strives for the throne of the world but trips on the steps every single time. Perhaps it's the curse of the leper demon king, or perhaps he just needs to hire a better strategist. But as the fires of the Deadlands fade from our mind's eye, the air grows cooler, thicker, and significantly more purple. The scent of sulphur is replaced by the smell of incense and night-blooming flowers. We are moving from the prince who screams to the prince who whispers, from the chaotic fires of revolution to the suffocating embrace of obsession. We are entering the realm of the Queen of Dawn and Dusk, and trust me, you're going to want to check your text messages because she definitely already read them. If Mehrunes Dagon is the explosion that levels the house, Azura is the beautifully handwritten letter left on the kitchen counter detailing exactly why it's all your fault. We move now to the Queen of Dawn and Dusk, the Mother of the Rose, and arguably the most popular Daedric prince among mortals. Ask a random adventurer in a tavern which prince they'd prefer to deal with, and 9 times out of 10, they'll say Azura. She seems benevolent. She rewards her followers. She appears as a beautiful woman holding a star and a moon, not a 4-armed demon or a giant slug. But here is the brutally honest truth that the temple priest won't tell you. Azura is the most toxic, high-maintenance, jealous partner in the entire cosmic pantheon. To understand Azura, you have to understand the nature of her affection. She loves her followers, absolutely. But she loves them the way a child loves a doll, or perhaps the way a collector loves a rare butterfly pinned to a board. She demands absolute, unwavering adoration. Dagon wants to destroy you. Molag Bal wants to dominate you. Azura wants you to love her, and if you stop loving her, or worse, if you love someone else, she will make sure you regret it for the rest of eternity. She's the prince of vanity and egotism disguised as altruism. She's the cool mum who suddenly locks you in the basement because you forgot to say, "Happy birthday." The most damning piece of evidence for this lies in the history of the Dark Elves. This is a core in-game historical fact that players encounter constantly in Morrowind, Oblivion, and Skyrim, yet we often glaze over the sheer horror of it. The Dunmer were once the Chimer, a golden-skinned elven race. When 3 of their leaders, the Tribunal, Almalexia, Sotha Sil and Vivek, broke an oath to Azura by using the tools of Kagranak to achieve godhood, Azura didn't just punish the 3 individuals responsible. That would be reasonable. That would be fair. No, she cursed the entire race. Every single Chimer man, woman and child, regardless of their involvement, had their skin turned to ash and their eyes to fire. She racially transformed an entire civilization essentially because her 3 ex-best friends started seeing other people. It is a collective punishment of biblical proportions, a permanent biological brand that says, "You belong to me, and look what happens when you stray." In Skyrim, we see this dynamic play out on a smaller, more personal scale during the Black Star quest. We meet Aranea Einith, the priestess at the Shrine of Azura. Aranea is a tragic figure. She has spent decades alone in the freezing cold, staring at a statue waiting for Azura to speak. She has given up everything, her family, her comfort, her life, for the goddess. And when the Dragonborn arrives and completes the quest, what happens to Aranea? Azura essentially ghosts her. If you cleanse the star, Azura speaks to you, the powerful hero, and tells Aranea her task is done. Aranea is left with nothing, confused and purposeless, eventually just becoming a generic follower you can drag into a dungeon. Azura uses people until they are empty, and then she moves on to the next shiny toy with a higher power level. But her vanity goes deeper than just punishing betrayal. There is a delightful, obscure lore tidbit involving the Dwemer that perfectly encapsulates her fragility. The story, often recounted in texts surrounding the disappearance of the dwarves, tells of a Dwemer scholar named Chilbar. The Dwemer were skeptics, preferring reason and logic over worship, which naturally drove Azura crazy. And Chilbar wanted to prove that Azura was not all-knowing. He took a box and put a single flower inside it. He then asked Azura what was in the box. Azura, being a god, smiled and correctly identified the flower. However, the moment she spoke, the Dwemer triggered a mechanism in the box that released a second flower, instantly revealing that her answer was incomplete or arguably wrong in the context of the trick. Azura's reaction was not to laugh at the cleverness of the mortal, nor to applaud the logic. She didn't offer a good game. Instead, she flew into a divine rage. The sheer audacity that a mortal would try to trick her, and technically succeed, was so offensive to her ego that she cursed them. It reinforces the idea that you cannot have an equal relationship with Azura. You cannot banter with her. You must be subservient. Her realm, Moonshadow, is described as a place of blinding beauty, full of colours mortals cannot see and smells of perfume. But beauty can be a cage. It is a garden where you are allowed to walk only as long as you constantly tell the gardener how wonderful she is. This brings us to a massive community debate that has raged since the Elder Scrolls III. Morrowind. Is Azura actually good? Many fans argue that she is the only prince who genuinely cares about the well-being of her subjects. They point to the fact that she warned her followers of the Red Year, the eruption of Red Mountain, saving thousands of Dunmer who fled to Skyrim. But the counter-argument is far darker. The theory suggests that Azura allowed the Red Year to happen, or at least didn't intervene to stop the meteor, the Ministry of Truth, from falling, specifically to destroy the Tribunal's legacy. The Tribunal had stolen her worshippers for thousands of years. By letting their city be destroyed and their power broken, she forced the Dunmer to return to her worship. Think about the implications of that. She saved the individuals who listened to her, yes, but she allowed the civilization that had turned away from her to burn. It's the ultimate gaslighting maneuver. Look at what happened when you stopped listening to me. Only I can save you. She creates or allows the crisis that she then saves you from, ensuring your gratitude is locked in forever. The Good Daedra moniker is arguably just a result of her having a better PR department than Molag Bal. While Bal wears spikes and skulls, Azura wears silks and stars, but the desire for control is exactly the same. Even her artifact, the Azura's Star, is a trap. It is a reusable soul gem. In the hands of a player, it's a convenient tool for enchanting. But conceptually, it is a device designed to trap souls forever. If you corrupt it into the Black Star by siding with the mortal mage Nelacar, who represents a desire to be free of Daedric influence. Azura is furious. She chides you for corrupting her artifact. But why? Because the Black Star allows for the trapping of black souls, mortal souls. By purifying it to only accept white souls, creatures, she maintains the moral high ground, yet she handed a soul-trapping device to mortals in the first place. She encourages the mechanics of soul entrapment, provided it's done on her terms. Azura represents the danger of the pedestal. She puts herself on one and she demands you stay at the foot of it. The moment you try to stand up or the moment you question the arrangement, the mask slips. The gentle mother becomes the scorned goddess. Her love is a spotlight. It feels warm when it's on you, but it's blinding and it leaves everything else in the dark. She isolates her favourites. Look at the Nerevarine. She guided them, sure, but she also isolated them from their peers, manipulated them into killing the living gods of their people, and then sent them off on a rumour-fuelled expedition to Akavir, never to be seen again. She cleans house once the party is over, so the next time you see that towering statue in the frozen wastes of Skyrim, holding the sun and moon in her hands, remember that those hands are not offering you a gift. They are holding on to the thing she owns, and if you pledge yourself to her, you're just another item in her inventory, another statue in her garden, frozen in a pose of adoration because that's the only pose she tolerates. The scent of roses and ozone fades, leaving a lingering sweetness that is almost sickly. We step away from the twilight, moving from the realm of the jilted lover to a place that defies logic entirely. The air begins to smell weird. Like ozone and cheese? No, like butterflies and panic. We are entering the realm where laughter and screaming are often the same sound. Prepare your mind, or perhaps prepare to lose it. If Azura is the possessive lover who demands you never leave her sight, our next subject is the person who invites you to a party, spikes the punch bowl with hallucinogens, and then laughs when you wake up 3 days later, wearing nothing but a wheel of cheese and a sense of existential dread. We are, of course, talking about the Mad God, the Prince of Madness, the skooma cat himself, Sheogorath. And if we are being brutally honest, we have to admit that the Elder Scrolls community has a bit of a Stockholm Syndrome relationship with this guy. We love the memes, we love the cheese for everyone catchphrases, we love the erratic Scottish-ish accent, but beneath the funny uncle routine lies perhaps the most genuine eldritch horror in the entire setting. The brutal truth is that Sheogorath isn't funny, he is terrifying. The humour is just the candy coating on a pill made of cyanide. Madness in the context of Tamriel isn't just about being zany, it is the total violent deconstruction of the self. When Sheogorath touches a mortal, he doesn't just make them tell bad jokes. He shatters their perception of reality until they are screaming at the geometric shapes in the corner of the room. He is the god of dementia just as much as he is the god of mania, and there is nothing hilarious about the crippling paranoia that your own skin is trying to suffocate you. Take a stroll through his realm, the Shivering Isles. It is the most distinct and artistically realised plane of Oblivion we've ever been allowed to visit, but structurally it is a nightmare. It is divided into mania and dementia. On the surface, mania looks bright and colourful. Giant mushrooms, vibrant skies, weirdly cute little bugs. But look closer. The artists of mania are so obsessed with their craft that they will poison, mutilate and betray anyone to achieve the perfect aesthetic. It is the realm of the overdose, the high that never ends until your heart bursts. It is creative energy stripped of empathy. On the other side, dementia is a swamp of rotting trees and whispering shadows representing depression, paranoia, and the slow decay of the mind. In the lore, the residents of these lands aren't just quirky NPCs, they are broken souls. They are people who have lost the ability to function. And presiding over it all is Sheogorath, treating their suffering like a sitcom. He famously invented music in his realm, according to one myth, by ripping a woman apart and making instruments out of her body parts because he liked the sound her screaming made. That is the entity we're dealing with. He isn't a prankster. He's a torture artist who uses psychosis as his medium. There is a specific, obscure piece of lore that highlights the cruelty of his intellect, found in the book 16 Accords of Madness, Book 6. This text details a duel between Sheogorath and Hircine, the Prince of the Hunt. Hircine, confident and arrogant, challenged Sheogorath to create a beast that could outmatch his own creation a horrific Daedroth. Hircine spent eons breeding the perfect predator, strong, fast, lethal. Sheogorath in response created a tiny, colourful bird. It looked useless. When the duel began, the bird perched on the snout of Hircine's monster and began to peck gently. It wasn't an attack, it was an annoyance, but the bird was beautiful and its song was hypnotic. The monster, confused and entranced, eventually tried to swat the bird, but ended up tearing its own throat out in a fit of frustration and self-destruction. Sheogorath won not by overpowering Hircine, but by introducing a seed of confusion that led to suicide. That is his modus operandi. He doesn't need to hit you with a warhammer, he just needs to tweak one little variable in your brain so that you destroy yourself. He proves that the strongest muscles in the world are useless if the mind driving them is broken. It's a chilling reminder that while Molag Bal wants to own your body, Sheogorath wants to turn your mind into a pretzel just to see if it makes a funny cracking sound. This leads us to the most significant fan theory, and arguably the most tragic narrative arc, in the entire series, the identity of the Sheogorath we meet in Skyrim. Veteran players will remember the champion of Cyrodiil, the protagonist of Oblivion. At the end of the Shivering Isles expansion, through a complex metaphysical process involving the Grey March, the champion effectively mantles Sheogorath. They take his place. The original Sheogorath reverts to his true form, Jigalag, the Prince of Order, and vanishes, leaving the mortal hero to sit on the throne of madness. When we meet Sheogorath in Skyrim, hundreds of years later, sitting in the Pelagius wing of the Blue Palace, he makes offhanded comments that all but confirm this. He mentions being there for the Oblivion crisis. He mentions Martin Septim, the fox, the grey fox, and a severed head, Mathieu Bellamont's mother. These are memories of the Oblivion player character. This implies a horrifying truth. The hero who saved Tamriel, who closed the jaws of Oblivion, who stood against Mehrunes Dagon, did not get a happy ending. They didn't retire to a farm in Skingrad. They slowly, over centuries, lost their mind. Their personality was eroded by the mantle of the mad god until the hero was gone, and only the cheese-loving lunatic remained. It suggests that you cannot defeat the Daedra without becoming them. It is a tragedy of cosmic proportions hidden behind a Scottish accent and a fancy suit. Furthermore, let's talk about the Wabberjack. It is the signature artifact of the mad god, a staff that produces random effects. It might heal your enemy, turn them into a chicken, or blast them with lightning. Players love it because it's random lol, but consider the horror of being on the receiving end. One moment you're a bandit fighting for your life, the next your biology is instantly rewritten into that of a sweet roll, and then you are eaten. You don't just die, you suffer total ontological failure. Your existence is treated as a joke. The Wabberjack is the ultimate expression of Sheogorath's philosophy. Rules are for boring people, and consistency is a lie. The brutally honest truth here is that Sheogorath is a prison warden, but the prison isn't a place, it's a person. We know from the lore of the Grey March that Sheogorath is actually a curse placed upon Jigalag by the other Daedric princes. They feared Jigalag's power of deduction and order, so they cursed him to be the thing he hated most: randomness. Sheogorath is essentially a conscious mental illness trapping a god of logic. Every few thousand years he becomes lucid, Jigalag, destroys his own realm in a fit of order, and then the madness takes over again. When you really look at him, the mad god is arguably the most suffering entity in the Orbis. He is trapped in a cycle of self-destruction, and he inflicts that trauma on everyone he meets. He is the laughter at a funeral. He is the friend who drives the car off the bridge because he wants to see if the airbags work. And the scariest part? He makes sense to himself. When he tells you to skip rope with your own intestines, in his mind, that is the most logical, reasonable request imaginable. We often think of madness in games as a status effect or a debuff. But Sheogorath represents the terrifying reality that the mind is fragile. You can be the strongest warrior in Tamriel, clad in dragonbone armor, shouting fire at the sky. But if the chemical balance in your brain shifts a fraction of an inch to the left, you are powerless. You are his. So, the next time you hear that voice, that charming, litting, slightly too high-pitched voice, inviting you for tea, remember what's in the cup. It's not just tea, it's the liquefied concept of time, or maybe just hot water with a fish in it. Either way, drinking it is a bad idea. But then again, in the Shivering Isles, bad ideas are the only currency that matters. As the laughter fades into the distance, echoing off the purple fungal trees, we leave the realm of loud, colourful insanity and descend into something quieter, something damper, something with way, way too many eyes. We are moving from the chaotic noise of the mad god to the suffocating silence of the forbidden library. Wipe the cheese crumbs off your armour and prepare to have your brain violated in a much more studious, tentacled fashion. Leaving the colourful, jagged mania of the Shivering Isles behind, we find ourselves wading into something much thicker, much darker, and infinitely slower. If Sheogorath is the frenetic energy of a sugar crash, our next host is the feeling of trying to run through waist-deep molasses while someone reads a dictionary to you at half speed. We are entering Apocrypha, the realm of Hermaeus Mora, the Gardener of Men, the Prince of Fate and Knowledge. And if we are being brutally honest, Hermaeus Mora is essentially the cosmic equivalent of that guy who hoards newspapers from 1982 because there might be something important in the classifieds. He is the hoarder of useless trivia. Hermaeus Mora presents himself as this grand Lovecraftian intellect, a mass of tentacles and eyes and void black ink. He claims to be the keeper of all forbidden knowledge. But have you ever actually looked at what he knows? He's obsessed with knowing things simply for the sake of knowing them. He doesn't use the information to build anything, to change anything, or to improve the cosmos. He just puts it on a shelf. He is a librarian who hates letting people check out books. Dealing with him is one of the most frustrating experiences in the Elder Scrolls universe, because he is the ultimate bureaucrat of the Abyss. He holds the answer to your question, but before he gives it to you, you have to fill out a form in triplicate, sacrifice a friend, and listen to a monologue that lasts 4 actual real-time hours. Let's talk about that voice. You know the one. Every Skyrim player has a visceral, PTSD-like reaction to the unskippable dialogue of Hermaeus Mora. It is a slow, wet, grinding drawl that refuses to be rushed. This isn't just a design choice, it's a power move. The brutal truth is that Mora doesn't respect your time because, to him, time is just another variable he has already catalogued. He forces you to wait, to hang on his every syllable, asserting his dominance through sheer boredom. He's the personification of a meeting that could have been an email, except the meeting takes place in a realm made of green slime and paper cuts. His realm, Apocrypha, is a visual representation of this hoarding disorder. It is an endless ocean of toxic ink, dotted with islands made entirely of books. Books are stacked in spiralling towers, scattered on the floor, rotting in the damp air. It's not an organised archive, it's a mess. It looks like the apartment of a scholar who gave up on hygiene in the Second Era, and the inhabitants, the seekers and lurkers, they are the custodians of this filth, wandering around making wet, slapping noises, ensuring that no one disturbs the dust. It is a place of stagnation. Knowledge in Apocrypha doesn't grow, it festers. In the Elder Scrolls V, Dragonborn DLC, we witness the pettiness of this prince firsthand during the main questline involving the Skull. Mora has been trying to get his tentacles on the secrets of the Skull for generations. He is obsessed with it. He holds the Dragonborn's potential power hostage until he gets these secrets. The tension builds up to this horrific moment where the Skull Shaman, Storn Cragstrider, sacrifices himself to give Mora the knowledge. Mora kills him, literally tentacles him to death in front of his daughter, strips the knowledge from his mind and leaves. And what was this great earth-shattering secret? It was essentially oral traditions. It was stories about living in harmony with the land, how to skin a hawker properly, and how to respect the Allmaker. It was wisdom, sure, but it wasn't a weapon. It wasn't a formula for godhood. Mora killed a man and traumatized a village just to complete his collection of Arctic survival tips. It highlights that Mora doesn't care about the value of the information. He just can't stand the idea that someone knows something he doesn't. He is the completionist gamer who needs 100% of the achievements, even the ones that require grinding for 500 hours just to see the number go up. However, if we dig into the dusty archives of Nordic folklore, we find a fascinating and obscure piece of lore that paints Mora in a different light. To the ancient Atmorans and the early Nords, Hermaeus Mora wasn't always a mass of eyes and ink. He was known as the Woodland Man. In these myths, he didn't lurk in a library, he haunted the forests. He was a trickster spirit who would try to tempt the Nords into becoming elves, essentially trying to trick them into giving up their longevity and strength for short-sighted magical gain. It's a bizarre image, the lord of tentacled horror being a woodland spirit. This connection to the woodland man suggests that Mora is far more ancient and primal than his scholarly demeanour implies. He isn't just a god of books, he's a god of the discarded things. Some in-game texts, like the monomyth, refer to him as the Urdaedra, suggesting he was born from the scraps of creation that were left over when Magnus the Architect designed the mortal plane. He is the cosmic lint that gathered in the pocket of the universe. This recontextualizes his hunger for knowledge. He is trying to fill the void of his own existence. He is made of leftovers, so he consumes everything else to feel whole. The Woodland Man persona was just a mask he wore when humanity was young, a way to trick simple hunters before he evolved into the complex, ink-spewing horror we know today. This leads to a chilling fan theory that has gained significant traction since the release of the Dragonborn DLC, the Numerak theory. The entire plot of the DLC revolves around you, the last Dragonborn, defeating the first Dragonborn, Mirak. Mirak has been trapped in Apocrypha for thousands of years, serving Mora, trying to escape. When you finally defeat him, Mora impales Mirak and kills him, claiming he has outlived his usefulness. He then turns his gaze to you. He calls you his new champion. The theory posits that you haven't won anything. You haven't saved Solstheim. You've just applied for a job opening that became available because the previous employee was fired, via tentacle. By accepting Mora's gifts, the Bend will shout, the Black Books, you have bound yourself to him just as tightly as Mirak was bound. The theory suggests that the last Dragonborn is doomed to the same fate, trapped in Apocrypha, slowly going mad among the stacks of books, serving as Mora's enforcer until a new, shinier hero comes along in the next era to kill you. It turns the power fantasy of the game on its head. You aren't the master of your destiny, you're just the latest shiny collectible on Mora's shelf. And let's be honest about the Ogma Infinium. This is his signature artifact, a book made of skin that gives you skill points. In Skyrim, we all glitch it to get infinite levels. Don't lie, I know you did. But lore-wise, reading it is supposed to drive you insane. It contains knowledge that the mortal mind can't process. Yet, Mora hands it out like a flyer on a street corner. Here, have some forbidden knowledge. Why? Because watching mortals break their own brains trying to understand the infinite is his version of reality TV. He gives you the tools to destroy yourself, because he lacks the creativity to destroy you himself. He is a passive observer of entropy. There is also something deeply unsettling about the physical sensation of his presence. Unlike the heat of Dagon or the cold of Baal, Mora is described as damp. He is the feeling of wet clothes that won't dry. He is the smell of old paper and mildew. He represents the slow, creeping inevitability of fate. You can run from a fire, Dagon. You can fight a tyrant, Baal. But you can't fight the fact that eventually everything is forgotten or recorded in a book no one reads. Mora wins not by fighting, but by waiting. He has all the time in the world, and he knows exactly how your story ends because he's already written the obituary. The brutal truth about Hermaeus Mora is that he is the ultimate procrastination of the universe. He hoards potential, but never acts on it. He knows how to cure every disease, how to build every machine, how to solve every conflict, but he keeps it all locked away in a realm that smells like squid ink and despair. He is the selfishness of intellect without morality. He proves that knowing everything is useless if you don't care about anything. So, as we back away from the black waters of Apocrypha, trying to wipe the ink stains off our boots, we leave the woodland man to his books. Let him count the pages. Let him stroke the spines of his tomes with his slimy appendages. We have places to be, and unlike him, we have a finite amount of time to get there. The slow, droning voice fades into the background, replaced by the sound of barking, howling, and the thundering of hooves. The air changes from the stagnant musk of the library to the crisp, blood-scented wind of the hunt. We're moving from the prince who sits and reads to the prince who runs and kills. Lace up your boots and check your stamina potion supply. We're going hunting. Shake the ink from your cloak and take a deep breath. Can you smell that? It's pine needles, wet fur, copper, and the distinct metallic tang of fear sweat. We are leaving the dusty, silent halls of Hermaeus Mora's library and stepping out into the crisp, dangerous air of the great outdoors. But this isn't a pleasant hike through the Falkreath woods. We are entering the domain of Hircine, the father of man-beasts, the prince of the hunt. And if we are being brutally honest, Hircine is less of a noble spirit of nature and more of a cosmic billionaire on an eternal ego-fueled safari trip, where you are the endangered species he paid to shoot. Hircine has a reputation in the Elder Scrolls community for being one of the fair princes. He's often cited as neutral because he abides by a code. He respects strength. He rewards the victor. He doesn't want to enslave the world like Molag Bal or destroy it like Mehrunes Dagon. He just wants to play a game. But let's look closer at the rules of this game. The brutal truth is that Hircine's fairness is a complete illusion. It is the fairness of a cat playing with a mouse. The cat might give the mouse a head start, and might let the mouse run for a bit, but the cat is 500 times the size of the mouse and has razor blades in its paws. The outcome is never actually in doubt. Only the duration of the entertainment varies. Consider the gift of lycanthropy. In Skyrim, playing as a werewolf feels powerful. You ragdoll bandits, you run fast, you howl at the moon. It's a power fantasy. But strip away the gameplay mechanics and look at the lore reality. Lycanthropy is a biological and spiritual violation. It is a disease that strips away your higher cognitive functions and reduces you to a starving animal. In the quest Ill Met by Moonlight, we meet Sinding, a werewolf who stole the ring of Hircine in an attempt to control his transformations. He wanted to be normal. He wanted to live without hurting people. And what happened? Hircine cursed the ring to make the transformations random and uncontrollable. Sinding ended up tearing a little girl to pieces in a blind rage. When you speak to Hircine about this, does he show remorse? Does he say, "Oops, my bad, collateral damage"? No. He's annoyed that Sinding stole his jewellery. He demands you skin Sinding alive to appease him. The death of the child is irrelevant to him. What matters is that his property was mishandled. This exposes Hircine's true nature. He is a sportsman who values the equipment more than the lives of the people involved in the sport. He is the guy who yells at you for scratching his golf club while you're having a heart attack on the fairway. The cruelty of Hircine is often masked by the aesthetic of nature. We romanticize the predator, but in Hircine's realm, the hunting grounds, the predation never ends. It is an infinite loop of terror. If you die as a werewolf, your soul goes there, and do you get to sit by a fire and eat roasted elk forever? No, you join the hunt. But here is the catch. In an infinite hunt, eventually you are the prey. There is always something bigger, and even if you are the biggest thing there, you are still subject to the whims of the prince himself, who might decide to hunt you just to see if he can. It is a paradise only if your definition of paradise involves constantly looking over your shoulder while something with too many teeth breathes down your neck. To understand the depth of his sadism, we have to look at a specific obscure event from the Blood Moon expansion of the Elder Scrolls III, Morrowind. This is the Hunt of the Hircine, a ritual that happens once an era. Hircine doesn't just invite willing participants, he abducts them. In Blood Moon, he kidnapped an Imperial Legion captain, a Nord warrior, and a simple Gorskin drummer. He stripped them of their weapons, dropped them into a maze filled with werewolves and told them, "Survive." This isn't sport, this is a horror movie. Specifically, the inclusion of the drummer, a non-combatant, gives the lie to the survival of the fittest rhetoric. Putting a musician in a cage match with a werewolf isn't testing strength, it's feeding time. It proves that Hircine doesn't care about a fair fight, he cares about the spectacle of slaughter. There is also the matter of the Totems of Hircine, ancient artifacts that grant werewolves specific powers. In lore, these totems are often made from the bones of his most devout worshippers. Think about that. You spend your life worshipping the Prince of the Hunt you kill in his name, you dedicate your soul to him, and your reward is to have your femur turned into a magical chew toy for the next guy. It reinforces the idea that to Hircine, you are raw material. You are either the hunter, the prey, or the equipment. Personhood does not factor into the equation. This brings us to a significant debate within the fan community: the fate of Kodlak Whitemane. In the companion's questline in Skyrim, Kodlak the Harbinger is desperate to cure his lycanthropy before he dies so he can go to Sovngarde instead of the hunting grounds. Many players find this confusing. Why wouldn't a warrior want to go to the hunting grounds? Isn't it Valhalla with more fur? But Kodlak knows the truth. He describes the rot inside his spirit. He knows that Hircine's realm is a trap. The debate rages. Is Kodlak prejudiced against his own nature, or is he the only one in the circle who sees the cage for what it is? The brutal truth leans toward Kodlak being right. The hunting grounds are described in the book The Doors of Oblivion as a place of endless shifting mazes and creatures that should not be. It's not a forest, it's a meat grinder. The glory of the hunt is a marketing slogan used to sell you a one-way ticket to eternal exhaustion. Imagine running a marathon, but if you stop running, you get eaten, and the marathon never ends. That is the afterlife Hircine offers. Furthermore, Hircine's aspects reveal his narcissism. He appears as the bear, the wolf, the elk, but always as the alpha. He inserts himself into the natural hierarchy of the world, dominating it. But nature, true nature, is chaotic and balance-seeking. Hircine is not balance. He is hyper-aggression. He is the invasive species that destroys the ecosystem. By granting mortals the power of the beast, he disrupts the natural order he claims to represent. A werewolf is a supernatural apex predator that has no natural counter. It eats until nothing is left. Hircine isn't the god of nature. He is the god of poaching. He gives you a bazooka and tells you to go deer hunting, then applauds you for your skill. Let's also address the sheer arrogance of the Saviour's hide. This is his other artifact, a piece of light armour made from the skin of whom? The lore varies, but one prominent story suggests it was the skin of his own son, or a unique Daedroth he favoured, that was skinned by a mortal who managed to escape the hunting grounds. Hircine, rather than being furious, thought it was hilarious and turned the skin into an artifact. On one hand, you could say this respects the victor. On the other hand, it shows a sociopathic detachment from his own kin. If he's willing to wear his own child as a vest, metaphorically speaking, just to commemorate a good game, what makes you think he cares about you? The fairness of Hircine is the fairness of a casino. The house always wins. You might win a hand, you might win a jackpot, surviving a hunt. But if you keep playing, and lycanthropy ensures you keep playing forever, you will eventually lose everything. He keeps the game going not because he wants to see who is strongest, but because he is bored. He is an immortal being with infinite power, and the only thing that gives him a thrill is watching mortals tear each other apart in the snow. Even the enemies you face in his name, the Silver Hand in Skyrim, are portrayed as fanatics, but are they wrong? They hunt monsters that eat people. Hircine spins the narrative to make the werewolves the oppressed children of the moon, but in reality they are biological weapons of mass destruction let loose on the populace. Hircine is the guy who owns a pit bull that has bitten 5 mailmen, but he insists. He's just playing, he wouldn't hurt a fly, while the dog is literally chewing on a tyre. So, as we wipe the snow from our visors and bandage the bite marks on our arms, we look back at the dense, dark tree line of the hunting grounds. The howls are getting louder, and they don't sound friendly. We leave the noble savage myth behind, recognising it for the blood sport it really is. But as the trees thin out, the air grows heavy and ash-choked. The smell of pine is replaced by the smell of sulphur, resentment, and the bitter, metallic taste of a grudge held for 10,000 years. We are moving from the hunter who kills, for sport, to the warrior who kills because the universe spit in his face. Prepare to feel heavy, because we are entering the gravity well of the pariah god. As the howling of the wolves fades into the distance, the air grows heavy, still, and incredibly dry. The sharp scent of pine is replaced by the taste of ash on the back of your tongue. The wind stops biting and starts scraping like sandpaper against the skin. We are leaving the hunting grounds of the predator to sit by the fire of the prey who survived, but who is definitely not happy about it. We are entering the ash pit, the realm of Malacath, the Orc Father, the Prince of the Ostracized. And if we are being brutally honest, Malacath is the cosmic embodiment of a valid but incredibly sad grudge. He is the guy who was the star quarterback in high school, got injured in a foul play that the referee ignored, and now spends eternity sitting in a dive bar talking about how the system is rigged. The tragedy of Malacath is unique among the Daedra because technically he might not even be one. Most Daedric Princes are primordial spirits who chose not to participate in the creation of the mortal world. They are outsiders by choice. Malacath, however, is an outsider by force. He is a refugee. The brutal truth of his existence is inextricably linked to the most humiliating origin story in the entire lore. We have to talk about it. we have to talk about Trinimac. Trinimac was once the strongest of the Daedric spirits, a champion of the elves, a golden knight of perfection. He was the ultimate hero. Then, in the Dawn era, he tried to stop the Daedric Prince Boethiah and the Shaima, the ancestors of the Dark Elves, from leaving the Somerset Isles. Boethiah didn't just defeat Trinimac in a duel, Boethiah ate him. Boethiah consumed the Golden Knight, assumed his voice to spread lies to his followers, and then, and I cannot stress how literal the texts are about this, excreted him. The remains of Trinimac were dumped out, twisted and corrupted, and became Malacath. His followers, the Orsaima, orcs, rubbed this soil upon their skin and were transformed into the tusked, green-skinned pariahs we know today. Think about the psychological weight of that. Malacath isn't just a god of monsters, he is a god who is literally defined by being the waste product of a better god. He is the living memory of a defeat so total and so degrading that it stained his entire race forever. This is why he is the Prince of the Spurned. His anger isn't the chaotic rage of Dagon, it is the simmering defensive resentment of someone who knows the world looks down on them. He is the chip on the shoulder of the universe. In the Elder Scrolls Fist, Skyrim, we see how this trauma manifests in the culture he enforces. The orc strongholds are insular, defensive, and harsh. In the quest The Cursed Tribe, we visit Largashbur. The tribe is failing. They are being attacked by giants, and their chief Yamaz is a weakling who can't protect them. Malacath speaks to the Dragonborn, and his voice isn't booming with divine authority. He sounds tired. He sounds like a disappointed father watching his son fail to change a tire. He demands you help, but he also openly mocks Yamaz. When Yamaz tries to betray you to take credit for killing the giant, it's pathetic. Malacath eventually punishes the tribe, but the whole interaction feels sad. It highlights the flaw in his philosophy. The Code of Malacath demands strength above all else, but it creates a society so cutthroat that it consumes itself. The code dictates that no orc man can take a wife or father children unless he is the chief. To become chief, you must kill the current chief. This means every father is eventually murdered by his son, or the tribe dies out. It is a system designed to ensure strength, but it guarantees instability. There is no accumulation of wisdom, no peaceful transition of power. It is a perpetual cycle of violence born from the fear of being weak again. Malacath is so terrified of his children being humiliated like he was, that he forces them into a lifestyle where they are constantly fighting for their right to exist. He loves them, but he loves them the way a drill sergeant loves a recruit, by breaking them down so the world can't hurt them anymore. But let's look at the Ash Pit, his realm. Obscure lore from the novel The Infernal City gives us a rare glimpse into this place, and it is horrifying in its emptiness. It is described not as a landscape, but as a swirling void of ash and dust. There is no ground, only levitation and particles. It represents the betrayal of the physical world. It is a place where promises are broken and things crumble. However, there is a distinct area within it called the Ashen Forge, which is a paradise for orcs, a place of eternal feasting and battle. This duality is fascinating. Malacath created a heaven for his people inside a realm that represents total loss. He is trying to build a fortress out of dust. It reinforces the idea that he is the only one looking out for the ugly things in the world, because no one else will. This brings us to the most heated debate in the Orcish community and the lore scholars, the Trinimac Schism. In the Elder Scrolls, online, Orsinium, we see a religious civil war among the orcs. King Curog wants to unite the orcs and rebuild the great city of Orsinium. To do this, he promotes the worship of Trinimac, the golden god they used to be, instead of Malacath. The argument is compelling. Malacath is a god of pariahs. As long as orcs worship the god of outcasts, they will always be outcasts. To build a civilization, they need to worship a god of civilization. Is Malacath holding them back? The brutal truth is, yes. Malacath defines the orcs by their victimhood. He validates their exclusion. He tells them, the world hates you, so you must hate it back. It is a protective mechanism, but it is also a cage. If the orcs return to Trinimac, they might lose their edge, or, as some theories suggest, they might physically revert to being elves, losing the strength that defines them. Malacath keeps them strong, but he keeps them alone. He is the friend who supports you during a breakup, but then gets mad when you start dating again, because he liked it better when you were both miserable together. Even his artifact Volendrung tells a story of rejection. It is a massive warhammer, originally a Dwemer artifact belonging to the Rorken clan. The Rorken clan rejected the first council with the Chimer and Dwemer in Morrowind. Their leader threw the hammer across the continent, vowing to settle wherever it landed. It landed in Hammerfell, hence the name. The Dwemer vanished, but the hammer remained, eventually claimed by Malacath. It is the weapon of a clan that walked away. It is the weapon of the No. It fits Malacath perfectly. It isn't a weapon of conquest. It's a weapon of establishing boundaries with extreme prejudice. There is also a subtle, darker layer to Malacath's relationship with the other princes. They don't respect him. Sheogorath calls him the spine of a mountain, but generally mocks his seriousness. Mephala and Boethiah view him as a defeated rival. He is not invited to the parties. In the hierarchy of Oblivion, he sits at the solitary table in the cafeteria. This isolation makes him incredibly dangerous because he has nothing to lose. He isn't playing the great game for power, he is playing for dignity. And a god fighting for dignity is a god who will hold a grudge until the stars burn out. We also have to acknowledge the sexism inherent in his sphere. The Code of Malacath is brutally patriarchal. Women are often treated as commodities to be traded between strongholds to ensure bloodline diversity. While wise women and forge wives hold significant power and respect, the structure is undeniably rigid. Malacath's trauma was a loss of masculinity, Trinomac the Knight defeated and corrupted, and so he overcompensates by enforcing a hyper-masculine culture on his followers. It's a tragic projection of his own insecurities onto an entire race. Yet despite all this, Malacath is perhaps the most honourable prince. He keeps his word. If you swear an oath in his name, you better keep it, or he will come for you. In a universe of liars, Boethiah, schemers, Molag Bal, and madmen, Sheogorath, Malacath is painfully, brutally honest. He tells you exactly what the world is, a cold, hard place where the strong survive and the weak perish. He doesn't lie to his children, he arms them. So, as we stand in the swirling ash, watching the silhouette of a lonely giant sharpening a blade that has seen too many battles, we feel a strange pang of sympathy. He's a monster, yes, but he is a monster because the world refused to let him be anything else. He is the patron saint of the second best, the ugly ducklings who never turned into swans but turned into armoured tanks instead. But the ash is clogging our lungs, and the mood is getting a little too depressed. We need to move, we need to shake off this heavy, sullen resentment and trade it for something sharper, something faster, something that smiles at you while it stabs you in the back. We are leaving the realm of the outcast to enter the realm of the popular kid who's actually a psychopath. Check your pockets and trust no one, not even yourself. We step out of the choking ash of Malacath's realm, dusting off the grey powder of resentment, and walk straight into the arms of the entity that put him there. If Malacath is the cosmic embodiment of the victim, Boethiah is the perpetrator who smiles and tells you it was for your own good. We are entering the realm of the Prince of Plots, the deceiver of nations, the Queen of Shadows. And if we are being brutally honest, Boethiah is that best friend who encourages you to cut toxic people out of your life, but then defines toxic as anyone who stands between you and a promotion. Boethiah is terrifying because she, and let's acknowledge that Boethiah swaps gender presentation more fluidly than any other prince, appearing as a warrior goddess in Skyrim and a noble patriarch in Oblivion, doesn't want to destroy you. She wants to improve you. But her curriculum for self-improvement involves murder, betrayal, and the complete erasure of your conscience. She is the original motivational speaker who tells you to hustle harder, except the hustle involves stabbing your business partner in the neck. The brutal truth of Boethiah's philosophy is best experienced in that one quest in Skyrim that makes everyone uncomfortable. Boethiah's calling. You find the shrine high in the mountains, a bleak, windy altar overlooking Windhelm. The cultists are fighting each other in a pit, which is a red flag immediately. But the core task Boethiah gives you is chillingly simple. She doesn't ask you to clear a dungeon. She doesn't ask you to fetch a magical item from a dragon priest. She asks you to bring a follower, someone who trusts you, someone who has fought beside you, to the pillar of sacrifice and slit their throat. Think about the mechanics of this. You have to ask a character like Feindal, who taught you archery, or Lydia, who has carried your burdens for 50 hours to follow you. They trust you implicitly. The game AI is programmed to follow you because you are the hero. You command them to touch the pillar. They obey. They get trapped in a magical field, terrified, unable to move, and then you look them in the eye and kill them. It is the single most personal act of violence the game asks you to commit. And for what? To get Boethiah's attention. To her, affection is a weakness, and trust is just a lever you pull to open a door. If you can't kill your friends, you aren't worthy of her artifacts. It teaches you that in Boethiah's world, people are fuel. This creates a fascinating psychological profile. Boethiah is not chaotic like Sheogorath. She isn't random. Every betrayal serves a purpose. It is about the will to power. It is Nietzschean philosophy weaponized. She believes that you only truly exist if you can impose your will on reality. And the ultimate proof of that is overriding the will of another. When you betray your friend, you're proving that your desire for the ebony male is stronger than their desire to live. It is a brutal calculus, but to Boethiah, it is the only math that matters. Now let's wade into the deep end of the lore pool for a moment. There is a very obscure text called the Blue Book of 4:26. It's a dry listing of tenets and laws, but hidden within it is a description of how Boethiah views government. To Boethiah, the overthrowing of authority is the highest form of worship. This isn't just about killing kings, it's about proving that the king wasn't strong enough to stay king. This connects to the obscure Tournament of 10 Bloods from the Elder Scrolls 4, Oblivion. In this event, Boethiah transported 10 members of different races to an interplanar arena to fight to the death. The winner got the sword Goldbrand. What's fascinating is that Boethiah didn't care who won. She didn't have a favourite, she just wanted to see who wanted it more. There is no racial bias, no morality, no favouritism. It is a pure meritocracy of murder. If an imperial bard managed to kill an orc berserker, Boethiah would applaud the bard. This makes her strangely egalitarian. She doesn't care if you're a peasant or an emperor. If you have the knife and the will to use it, you are her chosen. It's an inspiring message, provided you ignore the pile of bodies you have to climb to hear it. This leads to a massive debate in the community, specifically regarding the Dunmer, Dark Elves. The Dunmer worship Boethiah as one of the good Daedra, or reclamations. They credit her with teaching them how to be different from the Altmer, how to build houses, how to use magic, and essentially how to survive. The argument is Boethiah actually good for the Dunmer? Without her harsh lessons, the Chimer might have remained stagnant in the Somerset Isles, or they might have been wiped out by the Nords or Dwemer in Morrowind. Boethiah taught them that life is a struggle, and that they must be hard to survive. Supporters say she is the tough love mother who teaches her children self-defense in a dangerous universe. Detractors argue that she turned an entire race into paranoid, backstabbing xenophobes. Look at House Telvanni. They are the epitome of Boethiah's teachings. Might makes right. If you can kill a Telvanni wizard, you deserve his tower. It creates a society of incredible power but zero social trust. The debate essentially boils down to, is survival worth the cost of your humanity? Boethiah says yes. In fact, she'd argue that your humanity, or elvenness, is just a shackle holding you back. There is also the matter of her relationship with Molag Bal. They are rivals, but their rivalry is nuanced. Molag Bal wants to dominate you. He wants you to submit. Boethiah wants you to overcome. She hates Molag Bal not because he is evil, but because his form of evil is static. A slave in Cold Harbour stays a slave. A follower of Boethiah is expected to rise. If you submit to Boethiah, she will likely kill you for being weak. You are supposed to impress her, not worship her. This is why she's often considered the patron of the Sijic endeavour, the concept of mortals transcending gods. She pushes you to become a god yourself, even if she has to beat you within an inch of your life to get you there. However, we have to talk about the ebony mail. It is arguably the best stealth armour in the game. It muffles your movement and poisons enemies who get too close. But think about the symbolism. It is armour that hurts people just for being near you. It is the ultimate introvert artifact. It literally weaponizes your personal space. It reinforces the isolation of the champion. Once you put on that mail, you are a walking hazard. You can't hug anyone. You can't stand in a crowd without hurting innocents. Boethiah protects you, but she ensures you are always, fundamentally, alone. You become a poisonous shadow, untouchable and unloved. Let's not forget the sheer style of her cruelty. In Morrowind, she asks you to rebuild her shrine, but not just anywhere. She wants it built on a rock in the middle of the ocean, far from civilization, and she asks you to find a specific sculptor. It's a diva request. She wants a monument to her glory where only the brave, or the swimming proficient, can see it. It speaks to her vanity. She doesn't want mass appeal, she wants the elite. She wants the 1% of the murderers. The brutal truth about Boethiah is that she validates our worst impulses. We all have moments where we think, I could do this better than my boss, or I deserve that more than they do. Boethiah is the voice that says, yes, you do, so take it. She removes the guilt from ambition. She makes treachery feel like a spiritual awakening. She is the snake in the garden, not offering you an apple, but offering you the garden itself, provided you're willing to kill the gardener. And let's face it, after dealing with the whiny resentment of Malacath or the suffocating bureaucracy of Hermaeus Mora, Boethiah's clarity is almost refreshing. There is no fine print. There is no hidden curse. The deal is simple. Be the strongest, be the smartest, be the most ruthless, and you win. Just don't expect a thank you card. And definitely don't turn your back on your apprentice. As we wipe the blood of our followers off our hands, feeling terrible about it, or maybe feeling a little bit empowered, don't worry, I won't judge. We leave the windy, cold mountaintops of the Prince of Plots. We descend into the valleys, where the air is warmer, the fog is thicker, and a small dog is barking in the distance. We're moving from the high-stakes drama of betrayal to the low-stakes grifting of a cosmic pawnshop. Check your wallet, count your coins, and read the contract twice. Leaving the bloody, wind-scoured altars of Boethiah behind, we descend into the valleys where the air is warmer, the fog is a little thicker, and the stakes feel, at first glance, significantly lower. We are trading the survival of the fittest philosophy for something much more suburban, the art of the bad deal. We are entering the domain of Clavicus Vile, the prince of bargains, the master of insidious wishes. And if we are being brutally honest, Clavicus Vile is the cosmic equivalent of a used car salesman who is trying to sell you a vehicle that he absolutely knows, has no engine and is filled with angry bees. Clavicus Vile is unique because he doesn't want your soul in a violent way. He doesn't want to conquer Nirn. He just wants to see what happens when he gives you exactly what you asked for, knowing full well you didn't read the terms and conditions. He is the prince of the monkey's paw. Every interaction with him is a transaction, and the brutal truth is that the exchange rate is always rigged against the mortal. He is the casino slot machine that flashes lights and plays happy music while it drains your bank account. The most immediate red flag when dealing with Vile is his appearance. In Skyrim, and indeed in most of his manifestations, he appears as a small, jovial man, often described as impish or childlike. He isn't a terrifying demon lord. He's a guy you might meet at a tavern who offers to buy you around. This disarming appearance is his primary weapon. You lower your guard, you think, I can outsmart this little guy. That is the first mistake. Vile is ancient, bored, and incredibly petty. He thrives on the hubris of mortals who think they can lawyer a god. But you can't talk about Clavicus Vile without talking about the real brains of the operation, Barbas. This brings us to a core in-game fact that every Skyrim player knows intimately. Barbas is annoying, but he's also the only thing keeping Clavicus Vile from accidentally blowing up the universe or himself. In the quest, Daedra's best friend, we spend a significant amount of time following this talking dog. He barks constantly. He nudges you off cliffs. He pushes you into traps. It is an exercise in patience. But narratively, Barbas serves a crucial function. He is the superego to Vile's ID. He is the voice of reason. When you finally reach the shrine in Heimer's shame, Vile offers you a deal. Kill the dog, and you get the rueful axe. Keep the dog, and you get the mask of Clavicus Vile. Let's look at this deal with brutal honesty. The rueful axe is terrible. It has a swing speed slower than a tectonic plate shift. Its enchantment damages stamina, which is negligible. It is a garbage weapon wrapped in a cool visual design. The mask, on the other hand, gives you better prices in shops and speech bonuses. It is objectively the better item. The trap here isn't subtle. Vile wants you to kill Barbas not because the axe is a good reward, but because he wants to be free of his conscience. He wants to cut off the part of himself that says, maybe that's a bad idea. If you kill Barbas, you're effectively lobotomizing a Daedric prince, allowing his worst impulses to run wild, and your reward? A bad axe. It is the ultimate lemon. It proves that Vile will happily screw you over just to win a petty argument with his own pet. However, if we dig into the obscure lore, specifically the events chronicled in the novel The Infernal City, we see a side of Vile that is genuinely pathetic. In the time between Oblivion and Skyrim, Clavicus Vile lost a significant portion of his power. Why? Because of a sword. The sword Umbra, which was his own creation, gained sentience, rogue status, and essentially stole a chunk of Vile's realm to create a floating island of death that hovered over Tamriel. Vile was powerless to stop it. He was a god who got mugged by his own inventory. This storyline reveals that Vile is not omnipotent. In fact, he is incredibly vulnerable to his own creations. He makes deals that backfire on him. He is the chaotic investor who buys high and sells low. During the Umbriel crisis, Vile was desperate. He wasn't the master manipulator. He was a victim of his own desire for mischief. It paints a picture of a prince who is constantly teetering on the edge of bankruptcy, metaphysically speaking. He takes risks because he's bored, and sometimes those risks result in him losing a significant chunk of his own estate. This connects to a popular fan theory regarding the nature of Barbas. The theory posits that Barbas is actually the more powerful half of the entity. Notice that in Skyrim, Vile is stuck in a statue, unable to manifest fully, complaining about how weak he is without the dog. Barbas, meanwhile, is roaming Skyrim freely, invincible, and organising the Dragonborn to fix the mess. The theory suggests that Clavicus Vile is just the face, the mascot, while Barbas is the reservoir of divine power. Vile is the child making demands. Barbas is the parent holding the wallet. By reuniting them, you aren't helping Vile, you're putting the toddler back in the playpen so he doesn't hurt himself. The brutally honest truth about Vile is that he represents the futility of the shortcut. We go to him because we want something for nothing. We want power without training, wealth without work, love without effort. Vile grants these wishes, but he twists them to show you that the shortcut is always a trap. In the lore book Feyfoken, a mage enchants a quill to write perfectly for him. It works, but eventually the quill starts rewriting his life, ruining his relationships, and driving him to suicide. The quill was a gift from Vile. The lesson is always the same. If you didn't earn it, it will eventually own you. His realm, the Fields of Regret, is perfect in its banality. It is described as a pastoral landscape, pleasant and sunny, with rolling hills and smelling of flowers. It sounds nice, right? But the air is filled with Scafin, yellow-skinned, horned Daedra who are just itching to kill you, and the cities are filled with merchants selling happiness that turns to ash in your mouth. It is a realm of false advertising. It looks like a postcard, but it feels like a waiting room where your number is never called. Consider the Cyrodiilic champion's interaction with him in Oblivion. Vile asks for the sword Umbra. If you give it to him, you get the mask. But if you keep it, you have one of the most powerful swords in the game. Vile literally asks you to trade a weapon that can trap souls and slay gods for a helmet that makes people like you 20% more. It's a terrible trade. He relies on your completionist urge, your desire to finish the quest, to scam you out of a top-tier weapon. He banks on the player playing by the rules, while he is busy rewriting the rulebook in invisible ink. There is also a profound loneliness to Vile. He is the only prince who explicitly needs a companion, Barbas, to function. Mephala is solitary, Dagon has armies but no friends, Azura has worshippers, Vile has a dog, and he treats the dog terribly. It reflects a deep-seated insecurity. He needs validation. He needs someone to witness his cleverness. Without Barbas to roll his eyes at Vile's bad jokes, Vile is just a sad little man in a statue talking to himself. And let's be real about the wishes. In the Elder Scrolls Adventures, Redguard, the protagonist Cyrus travels to Vile's realm to save his sister's soul. He challenges Vile to a game. Vile, confident in his intellect, accepts. Cyrus essentially bluffs and logic puzzles the prince into a corner. Vile, realizing he has been beaten at his own game, throws a tantrum but honors the deal. It shows that for all his posturing, Vile is a sore loser. He isn't an eldritch horror beyond comprehension, he's a brat. If you stand up to him, if you read the contract and find the loophole, he folds. He relies on you being desperate, not on him being strong. So the next time you see that statue in the damp cave and you hear that nasally voice offering you the world, remember, he's not offering you the world. He's offering you a lease on the world with 400% interest, a balloon payment due in 3 weeks, and a clause that says he gets to keep your kidneys. Pet the dog. He's the only one in that cave who knows what's going on. Then turn around, walk out, and go grind your smithing skill the hard way. It's boring, but at least you get to keep your soul. As we leave the damp, echoing cave of Hamer's shame, stepping past the vampires we hopefully cleared out, the air shifts again. The playful, transactional nature of the bargain fades. The atmosphere becomes heavy, silent, and incredibly intimate. We're moving from the loud, barking dealmaker to the silent, whispering manipulator. We're entering the web. Check your back, check your friends, and maybe check under your bed. We are going to visit the spinner. Shh. Keep your voice down. Step lightly. We have left the barking dogs and the boisterous transactional shouting of Clavicus Vile far behind. The air here isn't filled with ash, or fire, or the smell of wet fur. In fact, the air here is perfectly still. It smells faintly of dried flowers, old lace, and perhaps a hint of metallic copper, the smell of blood that has already dried. We're entering the domain of the web spinner, the spider god, the prince of sex, murder and secrets, Mephala. And if we are being brutally honest, Mephala is the entity that destroys your life not by burning your house down, but by whispering a single sentence into your spouse's ear that makes them never look at you the same way again. Mephala is often cited as one of the good Daedra by the Dunmer, alongside Azura and Boethiah. But while Azura is the possessive mother and Boethiah is the violent coach, Mephala is the silent creeping rot in the foundation of society. She is the prince of the unspoken. Her sphere is obscured. We know she deals in lies, sex and assassination, but the brutal truth is that she is actually the prince of consequences. Specifically, the consequences of the things we try to hide. She doesn't need to manifest a giant avatar to destroy a kingdom. She just needs to untie one little knot in the social fabric and watch the whole thing unravel. Let's look at her primary interaction in Skyrim, the Whispering Door. This quest is a masterclass in domestic horror. You aren't sent to a dungeon. You aren't asked to fight a dragon. You are sent to the Dragon's Reach Jarl's quarters to investigate a haunted door. But the source of the haunting isn't a ghost. It's a whisper speaking to a child. Mephala has been grooming Jarl Balgruf's son, Nelkir. She has turned a sweet, noble child into a bitter, resentful little sociopath who hates his father. This is the cruelty of Mephala. She targets the most vulnerable, intimate relationships. She weaponizes the dinner table. When you finally retrieve the ebony blade, she encourages you to use it. But here is the kicker, the mechanic that makes every player pause. The ebony blade only increases in power if you use it to kill people who trust you. Unlike Boethiah, who asks for one grand sacrifice, Mephala asks for a pattern of behaviour. You have to kill a merchant you invested in. You have to kill a beggar you gave a coin to. You have to kill a follower you've adventured with. The blade drinks the feeling of betrayal. It is a vampire of friendship. To wield her artifact effectively, you have to become a serial killer of your own social circle. It's not just evil, it's antisocial in the clinical sense. It forces the player to look at their friend list and see a resource to be harvested. It turns friendship into a stat boost. That is the brutally honest truth of Mephala's philosophy. People are only as valuable as the secrets they keep or the blood they bleed. She is the friend who listens to your problems solely to gather ammunition to use against you later. But her influence goes far deeper than just creepy swords. We have to discuss the most significant and perhaps most disturbing debate in the entire Elder Scrolls lore community, the Night Mother theory. The Dark Brotherhood, the guild of assassins we all know and love, or fear, takes orders from the Night Mother, the unholy matron, who is the bride of Sithis. They believe they are serving the void. However, many scholars and fans argue that the Night Mother is Mephala. Think about it. Mephala is the prince of secret murder. The Morag Tong, the legal assassin guild of Morrowind, explicitly worships Mephala. The Dark Brotherhood is a splinter group of the Morag Tong. The theory posits that Mephala, the ultimate manipulator, is playing both sides. She created the Night Mother persona to manipulate the Dark Brotherhood into killing for chaos, while she uses the Morag Tong to kill for order. She's essentially the CEO of two competing companies, pitting them against each other just to maximize the market share of death. If this theory is true, it means that every contract the Dark Brotherhood fulfills, every prayer to Sithis, is actually just feeding Mephala's web. It means that the entire religion of the Brotherhood is a lie, a secret kept from the assassins themselves. And isn't that just perfect for the Prince of Secrets? To have an army of fanatical murderers who don't even know who they are actually working for? It's the ultimate corporate restructuring scam. It suggests that Mephala's deception is so absolute that she can wear the mask of another deity, Sithis Night Mother, perfectly for thousands of years. Now let's travel to her realm, the Spiral Skein. We don't see it in Skyrim, but descriptions from the Elder Scrolls Online and lore books paint a picture that is fundamentally claustrophobic. The Spiral Skein is described as a realm of perpetual twilight, filled with webs, cocoons, and architectural structures that look like they are made of hardened silk. But the geometry is wrong. It spirals inward. It is a physical representation of an obsession or a lie. When you tell a lie, you have to tell another lie to cover it, and another, spiraling deeper until you are trapped in the center. That is her realm. It is a trap you build for yourself. There is an obscure lore tidbit involving the Khajiit that sheds a fascinating light on her nature. To the Khajiit, she is Mephala, the clan mother. But in their myths, she is not just a killer, she is the keeper of the hidden moon. The Khajiit believe that secrets are necessary for survival. You don't tell the enemy where your kittens are sleeping. Mephala teaches them how to hide the truth to protect the things they love. This offers a nuanced view. Mephala isn't just about malicious lies, she's about privacy. She's the lock on your door. She's the password on your phone. She is the reason you don't tell your boss what you really think of his presentation. Without Mephala, society would collapse under the weight of brutal, unfiltered honesty. She is the grease of polite society, even if that grease is made of venom. However, there is a sexual component to Mephala that is often glossed over in the games but is present in the deep lore. She's often depicted as androgynous or hermaphroditic, embodying the duality of sex and death. In the 36 Lessons of Vivek, Mephala is the one who taught the Kaimer how to evade their enemies by killing them with secret murder and secret love. To Mephala, the act of intimacy and the act of assassination are frighteningly similar. Both involve getting close to someone. Both involve vulnerability. Both involve a release of tension. This is why she is so terrifying. She blurs the line between a lover's embrace and a strangler's grip. She is the femme fatale, or homme fatale archetype raised to a cosmic standard. Let's be honest about the Morag Tong versus the Dark Brotherhood. The Morag Tong, Mephala's true children, are scary because they are bureaucrats. They have writs. They pay taxes on their murders. They are legal. This highlights a truth about Mephala. She loves systems. She loves the complex web of laws and loopholes. The Dark Brotherhood are just punks with knives. The Morag Tong are lawyers with knives. Mephala prefers the lawyer. She prefers the kill that is sanctioned by society because it implicates society in the crime. When the Morag Tong executes a house lord, it's not a tragedy. It's a transaction. Mephala loves making us all accomplices. There is also the matter of her silence. Most princes love to monologue. Hermaeus Mora talks forever. Sheogorath never shuts up. Molag Bal screams. Mephala rarely speaks. In Skyrim, her voice is a whisper. She conveys her will through implication. This makes her the most efficient prince. She doesn't waste energy on theatrics. She plants a seed, a rumour, a doubt, a misplaced letter, and waits for it to grow into a murder. She's the ultimate practitioner of work smarter, not harder. Why send a Dremora army to destroy a city when you can just convince the king that his queen is sleeping with the general and let them burn the city down themselves? We also have to acknowledge the aesthetic of the spider. It's a cliché, but it works. A spider doesn't hunt like a wolf. A wolf chases. A spider waits. It builds a structure, the web, that is an extension of its own body, and it waits for the world to come to it. Mephala doesn't chase you. If you are entangled with her, it's because you walked into a trap that has been there for centuries. You are the fly buzzing around, thinking you are free, not realizing that the sticky strand on your wing was attached 3 weeks ago when you told that one little white lie. The brutally honest truth about Mephala is that she proves we are our own worst enemies. She doesn't need to corrupt us. She just gives us the tools to dismantle ourselves. She hands us the ebony blade, but we choose to swing it. She whispers the rumour, but we choose to believe it. She is the mirror that reflects our capacity for betrayal. We fear Molag Bal because he might break our bones, but we should fear Mephala because she might make us realise that we are capable of killing our best friend for a slightly better stat line on a sword. So, as we step carefully away from the whispering door, trying not to listen to the soft, sibilant voice promising us power if we just open it a crack, we feel a chill that has nothing to do with the temperature. We check our pockets to make sure we haven't lost anything. We check our conscience to make sure we haven't sold anything. But the silence is broken by a blinding, searing light. The shadows of the web are burned away in an instant. We are moving from the Prince of Secrets to the Prince who hates secrets, specifically the secret of free will. Put on your sunglasses and prepare to be judged, because we are entering the blinding brilliance of the Lady of Infinite Energies. Shield your eyes. Seriously, if you're playing this in a dark room, prepare for the brightness settings of your mind to be maxed out. We are leaving the subtle, creeping shadows of Mephala's web and stepping directly into the blinding glare of a supernova. We are entering the domain of Meridia, the Lady of Infinite Energies, the Glister Witch. And if we are being brutally honest, Meridia is the cosmic embodiment of a HOA president who will burn your house to the ground because your lawn grass is 1/4 of an inch too tall. She is the prince of a burning hatred for free will. Meridia is often categorized by the community, and even by characters in-game, as one of the few good Daedric Princes. After all, she hates the undead, she hates necromancers, she hates Molag Bal. In a universe filled with zombies and vampires, surely the lady handing out glowing swords to kill them is the hero, right? Wrong. The brutal truth is that Meridia doesn't hate the undead because they are evil or because they hurt people. She hates them because they are inefficient. She views undeath as a violation of the laws of thermodynamics. It is energy being used incorrectly. Her crusade isn't moral, it's bureaucratic. She is a purity-spiraling authoritarian who views free will as a chaotic variable that needs to be scrubbed out with bleach. Let's address the elephant in the room, or rather, the beacon in the chest. Every Skyrim player shares a collective trauma involving a specific geometric rock. You open a chest in a random dungeon, looking for loot, and suddenly, a new hand touches the beacon. It is the audio equivalent of a flashbang grenade. It is loud, it is demanding, and it is non-consensual. Meridia doesn't ask for your help. She drafts you. She yanks you into the sky, suspends you thousands of feet in the air, and dictates terms. If you refuse, you fall. This interaction perfectly encapsulates her personality. To Meridia, you're not a person, you are a hand. You are a tool to be directed. She shouts over you because she cannot conceive of a reality where your opinion matters. This authoritarian streak runs deep in her history. We have to look at the obscure lore of the Ayleids to see her true colours. In the First Era, the Ayleids, wild elves, ruled Cyrodiil and enslaved the human populations. They were cruel masters, famous for their flesh gardens and gut sculptures. And who was their patron deity? Meridia. She was the divine sponsor of the Ayleid Empire. She granted power to Umaril the Unfeathered, the sorcerer king who enslaved thousands. This is a core historical fact often forgotten in Skyrim. The good Daedra Meridia looked at a civilization built on torture and slavery and said, "Yes, I like their aesthetic. They use a lot of white marble and light magic. I'll support them." She didn't care about the suffering of the humans because the Ayleids represented light and order. This proves that her definition of purity has absolutely nothing to do with morality. You can be a genocidal tyrant, but as long as you aren't raising the dead, Meridia is perfectly happy to sign your paycheck. But where does this obsession with light come from? The obscure lore tidbit here is that Meridia isn't technically a Daedra in the traditional sense. She is a Magna GE. The Magna G are the Star Orphans, the spirits who fled creation with Magnus, the architect of the world, to tear holes in the sky to Aetherius, which we see as stars. Meridia, originally known as Meridnunda, was cast out of Aetherius. Why? For consorting with illicit spectra. Think about that phrasing. She was kicked out of heaven for mixing with the wrong crowd, or perhaps for trying to bend the light in ways that defied the natural order. She's a fallen angel. This explains her realm, the coloured rooms. It is described as a place of floating stones and endless shifting light. It is her attempt to recreate Aetherius in Oblivion. She's a homesick exile trying to terraform the void into a pale imitation of the paradise she was evicted from. She's the ultimate perfectionist, trying to fix a broken universe by force. This leads us to the most terrifying aspect of her sphere, explored deeply in the Elder Scrolls Online, the Purified. In her quest to eradicate darkness and free will, Meridia blesses her followers by stripping away their individuality. She burns out their personality, their memories and their desires, leaving behind a glowing golden husk that lives only to serve her. These are the Purified, or Lustrants. They are functionally identical to the zombies she claims to hate, except they are powered by light instead of necromancy. This fuels a massive debate in the lore community. Is there any functional difference between Meridia and Molag Bal? Molag Bal wants to dominate your will through pain and fear. Meridia wants to dominate your will through light and love. The end result is exactly the same. You are a slave. In fact, many fans argue that Meridia is worse. With Molag Bal, you know you're being tortured. You can resist. You can hate him. With Meridia, she lobotomizes you. She makes you think you want to be a slave. She's the smiling cult leader who tells you to drink the flavor aid because it will bring you to a higher plane of existence. She represents the tyranny of the light, the idea that order, taken to its absolute extreme, is just as destructive as chaos. Even her artifact, Dawnbreaker, reflects this indiscriminate destruction. It causes explosions of fire that hurt only the undead, mostly. But conceptually it is a sword of absolute judgment. It burns. Fire cleanses, but fire also consumes. When you wield Dawnbreaker, you are the agent of a wildfire. Meridia doesn't care if the forest burns down as long as the rot is gone. She would rather have a sterile, empty wasteland of ash than a vibrant forest with a few dead logs in it. Let's look at her relationship with free will again. In the Elder Scrolls 4, Oblivion, specifically the Knights of the Nine DLC, which deals with the return of Umaril, we learn that Umaril survived death because he made a pact with Meridia. He was unfeathered. His spirit was bound to the coloured room, so he could never truly die. He would just reform and come back to enslave humanity again. Meridia enabled an eternal dictator. Why? Because he was her champion. She broke the rules of life and death, the very thing she criticises necromancers for to keep her favourite pet in the game. It screams of hypocrisy. Rules for thee, but not for me. She hates necromancers because they are unauthorised users of soul manipulation. She wants a monopoly on immortality. Furthermore, there is a distinct coldness to her interactions. When you complete her quest in Skyrim, she says, "Go, spread my light." She doesn't thank you. She dismisses you. You are an employee who just finished a shift. There is no warmth in her light. It is the cold light of a distant star, or the harsh fluorescent light of an operating room. It reveals flaws, it exposes dirt, but it offers no comfort. To stand in Meridia's light is to be constantly judged and found wanting. In the Elder Scrolls Online, Somerset, we see her actively interfering in the plot, but her help is unnerving. She speaks in riddles, manipulates events, and ultimately, when things go wrong, she vanishes. She treats mortals like pieces on a chessboard. If a pawn gets taken, she doesn't mourn, she just calculates the next move. She's a logic engine made of photons. She lacks the chaotic empathy of Azura or the tragic sadness of Malacath. She is pure, unadulterated efficiency. The brutally honest truth about Meridia is that she represents the horror of the greater good. She is the entity that will sacrifice 1,000 innocent people to stop one necromancer, and she won't lose a wink of sleep over it because the math checks out. She is the surgeon who amputates the wrong leg because the chart said so, and refuses to apologise because the procedure was technically flawless. She appeals to the part of us that wants simple answers. Undead bad, light good. It's a binary system. But the world of the Elder Scrolls is grey. It's complex. Meridia hates complexity. She wants to bleach the world until it is white, flat and featureless. She is the enemy of nuance. So the next time you find that beacon, and you hear her voice booming in your headset, commanding you to march up Mount Kilcreath, remember who you are working for. You aren't a holy crusader. You are the janitor for a fallen star who thinks she's better than everyone else. You are cleaning up her mess so she can pretend her universe is perfect. And if you do a good enough job, maybe, just maybe, she'll do you the favour of burning out your brain so you never have to think for yourself again. Shield your eyes as we turn away from the searing, blinding perfection of the coloured rooms. The spots in your vision will fade, but the feeling of being watched by a cold, unblinking eye remains. We are leaving the realm of sterile light and descending into the deepest, darkest, filthiest gutter in Oblivion. We're moving from the hospital operating room to the dumpster behind the seafood restaurant. Prepare your stomach, cover your mouth, and try not to think about what that squishing sound under your boot is. We are going to visit the spirit of decay. Turn off the flashlight. You won't need it where we're going, because the things living here navigate by smell and touch. We are leaving the sterile, burning judgment of Meridia's light and plunging headfirst into the wet, squelching darkness of the scuttling void. We are entering the domain of Namira, the spirit of Daedra, the mistress of decay, the lady of the spirit of darkness. And if we are being brutally honest, Namira is the cosmic embodiment of that intrusive thought you have when you see a dead animal on the side of the road. The morbid curiosity, the revulsion, and the strange, undeniable realization that eventually you are going to look exactly like that. Namira is the prince of the abject. In philosophy, the abject is everything that society casts out to maintain its cleanliness. It is feces, corpses, rot, slime, and the people we refuse to look at, the beggars, the lepers, the wretched. Namira looks at the things you flush away or bury, and she embraces them. The brutal truth about her is that she offers the most disturbing form of comfort in the entire Orbis, the comfort of giving up. She tells you that it is okay to be disgusting. She tells you that you don't have to strive for the light. You can just lie down in the mud, let the insects burrow into your skin, and finally, truly, relax. We have to start with the most visceral interaction players have with her in the Elder Scrolls Farfand. Skyrim, the quest, the taste of death. This quest is a litmus test for the player's morality, or perhaps just their stomach strength. You are summoned to the Hall of the Dead in Malacath by Iola, a seemingly normal woman who turns out to be the leader of a coven of cannibals. Namira doesn't ask for a soul gem or a grand battle. She asks you to sit down at a dinner table and eat a piece of Brother Varulus, a priest of Archae. Let's really process that. In a game where you can decapitate bandits and burn dragons alive, this specific act stands out as uniquely horrifying. It violates the most fundamental biological and social taboo of our species, and yet the way Iola frames it is chillingly seductive. She talks about the hunger that you've always denied. She normalizes the monstrosity. When you take a bite, you're rewarded with the Ring of Namira, which allows you to feed on corpses for health and stamina regeneration. The mechanic itself is the message. You are recycling. You are turning death back into life. To Namira, a corpse isn't a tragedy, it's a lunchbox. She strips away the sanctity of the body and reduces it to meat. But if we look deeper into the lore, specifically the ancient Khajiit mythology, Namira transforms from a gross beggar god into an eldritch horror of the highest order. To the Khajiit, she is Namira, the Great Darkness. In their creation myth, when Lorcan, was born, the Great Darkness knew its name, and that name was Namira. She is the void that existed before creation. When Lorcan created the mortal world, Namira corrupted him. She is the reason the heart of Lorcan is a thing of dark power. This obscure lore tidbit, the idea that Namira is the corrupter of the creator god, elevates her significantly. She isn't just scavenging the leftovers of the world. She tainted the recipe before the world was even baked. The Khajiit believe that the Dromathra, the dark spirits that invade from the void, are souls that have been claimed by Namira. They perform the bent dance. They are the anti-Khajiit. This paints Namira not as a scavenger, but as the active entropy of the universe. She's the void that is constantly trying to reclaim the stars, pulling everything back into the dark, silent slurry from which it came. Her realm, the scuttling void, is rarely described in detail, but what we know is nightmare fuel. It is a place of eternal darkness, but it isn't empty, it is alive. The darkness crawls. It is filled with spiders, slugs and insects, creatures that thrive on decay. It is the sound of a billion tiny legs moving over wet stone. In the Elder Scrolls Freedom, Oblivion, her followers are those who have become too ugly for society. They are the people who have been so beaten down by life that they find solace in her darkness, because the darkness doesn't judge their faces, it hides them. This leads to a fascinating and somewhat tragic fan theory regarding the Beggar Prince. fans debate whether Namira is actually a necessary component of the cosmos's mental health. Think about the beggars in Skyrim or Oblivion. They are invisible to most NPCs. You run past them. The guards ignore them. They are socially dead before they are physically dead. Namira is the only entity that sees them. She gives the wretched a sense of community. The coven in Malacath includes a shopkeeper, a dog trainer, a seemingly normal citizen. They are a secret society of the overlooked. The theory suggests that Namira represents the shadow self, the parts of our psyche we repress. By suppressing these dark urges, cannibalism, filth, sloth, we give them power. Namira argues that by indulging them, by bringing them into the light, or rather bringing yourself into the dark, you achieve a strange kind of wholeness. Is she the god of mental illness, or the god of radical acceptance? She accepts you when you are at your absolute worst, when you are covered in filth, when you have done the unforgivable. She loves you because you are broken, not in spite of it. That is a powerful, toxic kind of love. However, we must address the sheer physical repulsion of her blessings. In Oblivion, her spell, Namira's Shroud, reflects damage back at attackers, but only if you have low personality. She literally rewards you for being unlikable. In the Elder Scrolls Online, we encounter the Strangler, a plant-like creature corrupted by her influence that drags people into the dark to digest them. Her aesthetic is wet, fungal, and parasitic. She is the mould on the bread. She is the maggot in the wound. And let's talk about the Reachmen. The Reachmen of the Druidic Mountains worship Namira heavily. To them, she is the spirit of the natural cycle of decay. They view death as a planting. When you die, you feed the earth, which feeds the worms, which feed the birds, which feed the Reachmen. It's a closed loop. They don't fear her, they respect her efficiency. This perspective challenges the civilized view of the divines. Arche wants to protect the soul and bury the body in a stone coffin where it can't be used. Namira says, "What a waste." She wants that biomass back in circulation. She's the ultimate recycler, but her method involves eating your grandma. There is also a deeply unsettling connection between Namira and the concept of the void as a sentient hunger. Unlike the Dark Brotherhood Sithis, which is a cold, impersonal void of non-existence, Namira's void is hungry. It has teeth. When you engage with her artifacts or her shrines, you often hear skittering sounds. You feel like something is crawling on you. It plays on the primal human fear of infestation. The idea that your body is not a temple but a colony for something else. In the Elder Scrolls Online, elsewhere, the battle against the Dromathra reveals that Namira's corruption spreads like a virus. It turns the fur of the Khajiit black and blue, cracks their skin like broken porcelain, and fills the cracks with blue fire. It is beautiful in a horrific way. It suggests that underneath our skin we are all just hollow vessels waiting to be filled with the void. She hollows you out. That is the brutally honest truth. Namira wins in the end, because no matter how much armor you wear, no matter how much restoration magic you use, eventually you will rot. Eventually the worms will get in. Namira is just the patience of the grave waiting for you to stop struggling. And think about the Ring of Namira again. When you wear it, the game text says, "The corpse of Name is being fed upon." It's so clinical, but the sound effect, the crunching, wet, tearing sound, is incredibly graphic. It forces the player to acknowledge the animal reality of their character. You aren't just a hero, you are an organism that needs fuel. Namira strips away the narrative of the Dragonborn and reminds you that you are just 150 pounds of meat that needs to eat other meat to keep moving. It is the most humbling, humiliating realization in the game. So, as we crawl out of the damp, dark crypts of Malacath, wiping the residue from our mouths, we try to forget the taste of the special meat. We try to forget the comfort of the dark. We try to convince ourselves that we belong in the light, that we are clean, civilized people. But as we walk away, we notice a cough, a deep, wet rattle in the chest. We look at our skin and see a rash forming. The smell of rot fades, replaced by the smell of antiseptic, bile, and incense. We are moving from the chaotic decay of the void to the ordered, structured misery of the plague. We are entering the office of the middle manager of Oblivion. Wash your hands, not that it will help, and prepare your immunization records. We are going to see the taskmaster. Cover your mouth with a cloth. preferably a thick one soaked in vinegar or strong wine. We are leaving the dark, comforting, creeping rot of Namira's void. Namira was the passive acceptance of decay, the moss growing on a stone. But where we are going now, the decay is active, it is mobile, it is airborne. We are entering the domain of Peryite, the Taskmaster, the Prince of Pestilence, and the Lord of the Natural Order. And if we are being brutally honest, Peryite is the cosmic equivalent of an overworked, underappreciated middle manager who is trying to run a Fortune 500 company using only a clipboard, a stapler, and the bubonic plague. Peryite has a serious image problem within the Elder Scrolls community. If you look at any ranking the Daedric Princes by power list on a forum or Reddit thread, Peryite is almost invariably at the bottom. He is often mocked as the weakest prince. He doesn't have a terrifying realm of torture like Molag Bal. He doesn't have a realm of madness like Sheogorath. He doesn't have a cool, edgy aesthetic like Boethiah. His sphere is administrative. He manages the lowest orders of Oblivion. He is the guy who makes sure the paperwork is filed, the floors are swept, and the population graphs are trending in the right direction. But the brutal truth is that Peryite is the only adult in the room. While the other princes are busy playing dress-up or throwing tantrums, Peryite is keeping the ecosystem of the universe from collapsing under the weight of its own stagnation. Let's look at his presentation in Skyrim. You find his shrine in the Reach, and it is underwhelming. It's just a rock with a few sick people coughing around it. His champion is Kesh the Clean, a Khajiit who is seemingly immune to the diseases he handles. Kesh is the ultimate fanboy, but he's also a chemist. He asks you to gather ingredients: vampire dust, a silver ingot, a flawless ruby, and death bell. This isn't a blood sacrifice, it's a recipe. It's chemistry. You throw them in a cauldron, inhale the toxic green fumes, and then you talk to Peryite. And how does he appear? As a ghostly, spectral dragon. This is the dragon complex in full swing. Peryite is often ridiculed for appearing as a dragon, which many view as him overcompensating. Look at me, I'm big and scary like Akatosh. But this mimicry is central to his character. He adopts the form of the supreme time dragon, but twisted. If Akatosh represents the stability of time, Peryite represents the stability of biology. He uses the dragon form to assert authority because he knows that without a terrifying avatar, no one would listen to the guy who is essentially the god of the flu. The quest itself, the only cure, is a corporate HR nightmare. Peryite explains that his previous overseer, an elf named Auchendor, has gone rogue. Auchendor was supposed to be leading the afflicted, Peryite's followers, to spread a specific plague, but instead he holed up in the Dwemer ruin, of Bethardums, and stopped answering Peryite's calls. Peryite doesn't ask you to save the world, he asks you to go fire his employee. Literally. He sends the Dragonborn, a demigod of war, to act as a glorious pink slip. Auchendor's crime wasn't trying to destroy the world, it was insubordination. He messed up the spreadsheet. He disrupted the workflow. Peryite's wrath is the wrath of a manager whose quarterly projections are off because one guy in accounting decided to work from home and stopped checking email. But the brutally honest truth about Peryite is that his work is arguably the most essential. We view disease as evil because it hurts us. Peryite views disease as a necessary forest fire. It clears out the dead wood, it strengthens the population, it checks the growth of species that would otherwise consume all resources. He is the prince of population control. Without Peryite, life on Tamriel would expand unchecked until it starved itself to death. He is the harsh, unfeeling mechanism of natural selection. He isn't cruel for the sake of cruelty. He is cruel for the sake of sustainability. He is the only prince who actually cares about the long-term viability of the mortal plane, even if his method of saving it involves everyone vomiting blood for a week. There is a fascinating, obscure lore tidbit found in the Pocket Guide to the Empire, 3rd edition regarding his realm, the Pits. It is described as looking like the Deadlands, Dagon's realm, but without the fire and with much more order. It is a series of lower planes that Peryite manages. The text suggests that Peryite is responsible for corralling and managing the lesser Daedra, the chaotic feral spirits that don't belong to any specific prince. He is the zookeeper of Oblivion. Think about the sheer logistical nightmare of that job. While Dagon is trying to invade Tamriel, Peryite is in the basement wrangling millions of scamps and clanfears, making sure they don't eat each other or leak into other dimensions. He is the custodian who cleans up the mess the other princes make. He is the uncelebrated infrastructure of the void. This brings us to a compelling fan theory, the shadow of Akatosh. Many lore scholars argue that Peryite is not just mimicking Akatosh, but is actually a shard of him, or perhaps his mirror. Akatosh is the god of time and enduring order. Peryite is the god of natural order and cycles. Time and nature are inextricably linked. You cannot have evolution, Peryite, without time, Akatosh. The theory suggests that Peryite is the maintenance mode of the time dragon. When the world gets too stagnant, Akatosh doesn't intervene directly. The system, Peryite, automatically generates a plague to force change. This makes Peryite a fundamental cosmic force, not just a minor demon. He is the immune system of the Orbis, attacking the infection of stagnation. Let's talk about Spellbreaker. This is Peryite's artifact, and it is hands down one of the best shields in Skyrim. It creates a ward that blocks magic. But isn't it ironic? The god of disease gives you a shield that protects you from harm. Specifically, it protects you from magic, from the unnatural. Spellbreaker is a Dwemer Tower shield. The Dwemer were the ultimate technologists, the ones who tried to defy the gods. That Peryite claims their shield is significant. It represents containment. A shield doesn't kill, it endures. It weathers the storm. That is Peryite's philosophy. You endure the plague and you come out stronger. Or you die. Either way, the system works. The shield is a metaphor for the immune system itself, a barrier that filters out the harmful elements so the organism can survive. There is also something strangely bureaucratic about the afflicted in Skyrim. They aren't mindless zombies. They are sick, they are in pain, but they are organised. In Bethardams you see them patrolling, cooking, sleeping. They have a society. They are suffering for their god, but they accept it as a job. They are the essential workers of the cult world, doing the dirty, painful work because they believe in the manager's vision. When they vomit poison at you, which, let's be honest, is the grossest attack in the game, it's not out of malice. It's just what they do. It's their function. Peryite also lacks the ego of the other princes. He is polite. When you speak to him after inhaling the fumes, he is courteous, articulate, and calm. He doesn't scream, "I am the Lord of Destruction." He says, "I have a task for you." He treats you like a freelancer. He respects the contract. In a pantheon filled with narcissists looking at you, Azura, and psychopaths looking at you, Molag Bal, Peryite is refreshingly professional. He has a job to do. You have a skill set he needs, and he pays you in loot. It's the healthiest professional relationship you'll have with a Daedra. However, we can't ignore the green, pus-filled reality of his blessings. The brutal truth is that Peryite's order is ugly. It looks like a hospital ward during a pandemic. It smells like bile and disinfectant. It is the order of the mass grave. He reminds us that nature is not a Disney movie. Nature is parasites, infections, and sudden arbitrary death. He forces us to confront the biological fragility of our existence. You can be the Dragonborn, slayer of Alduin, but a microscopic organism can still lay you low. Peryite is the check on our hubris. He is the reminder that we are all just sacks of fluids that can leak at any moment. So, as we step away from the cauldron, our heads spinning from the fumes, wiping the green residue from our armour, we have to give a begrudging nod to the spectral dragon fading into the mist. He isn't cool, he isn't flashy, he definitely isn't fun at parties, but someone has to take out the trash. Someone has to make sure the population doesn't exceed the food supply. Someone has to manage the pits. Peryite is the guy who unclogs the toilet of the universe. You don't have to like him, but you really, really don't want him to stop doing his job. Because if Peryite takes a vacation, the whole system backs up, and trust me, you do not want to see what that looks like. The green haze dissipates, and the sound of coughing fades behind us. The air clears, but then it starts to smell sweet, sickly sweet, like roses that have been left in a vase for a day too long, mixed with the smell of spilled wine and heavy perfume. The headache from the fumes is replaced by a different kind of headache, the throbbing, dehydrated onset of a cosmic hangover. We are moving from the Prince of Work to the Prince of Play. Put away your clipboard and grab a goblet, but be careful what you drink. We are entering the myriad realms of revelry. Take a deep breath. Can you smell that? It's not the rot of Peryite or the ash of Malacath. It's jasmine, roasted meat, and a heavy, overpowering scent of red wine that has spilled onto a velvet rug. The air is warm, humid, and vibrating with the low thrum of bass-heavy laughter. We are leaving the hospital ward of the Taskmaster and stumbling into the VIP section of the club that never closes. We are entering the domain of Sanguine, the prince of debauchery, dark passions and hedonism. And if we are being brutally honest, Sanguine is the cosmic embodiment of the party that stopped being fun 3 hours ago. But the doors are locked, and the DJ just started a 6-hour set of experimental noise. Sanguine is often dismissed by the Elder Scrolls community as the fun prince. He's the comic relief. He's the guy who just wants to have a good time, but this is the most dangerous misconception in the entire lore. The brutal truth is that Sanguine is not the prince of fun. He is the prince of excess. There is a massive difference. Fun is playing a game of cards with friends. Excess is gambling away your house, your boots, and your liver in a single hand. Sanguine represents the dark, spiraling nature of addiction. He is the friend who pours you another shot when you're already on the floor. He is the voice that says, "One more won't hurt," right before you make a decision that ruins your life. The quintessential Sanguine experience, of course, is the Skyrim quest A Night to Remember. It starts innocently enough. You meet a mage named Sam Gaven in a tavern. He challenges you to a drinking contest for a staff. It seems low stakes. You drink, you black out. And then you wake up in the Temple of Dibella in Malacath, on the other side of the map, being screamed at by a priestess for trashing the place. As you retrace your steps, the comedy turns into a horror story of lost agency. You find out you stole a goat and sold it to a giant. You find out you proposed marriage to a hagraven, a literal monster, in a grove called Witchmist. You find out you ran up massive debts. Sanguine took control of your body for one night and piloted it like a stolen carriage, crashing it into every social norm he could find. While the quest is played for laughs, the implication is terrifying. You lost time, you lost control, you did things that, in a realistic setting, would have you arrested or killed. Sanguine proves that your dignity is fragile, and with just a little bit of chemical encouragement, you can become a monster. But the horror goes deeper. Sanguine's realm isn't a single place. It is the myriad realms of revelry. According to lore, he controls thousands of pocket dimensions, each tailored to a specific desire or vice. This sounds great until you realize the trap. If you love eating, he has a realm of infinite banquets. But you can never stop eating. You eat until you burst, and then you reform and eat again. It is a hell of satisfaction. He traps you in your own want. He gives you exactly what you desire until you hate it, and then he forces you to keep doing it forever. It is the Twilight Zone definition of hell, getting everything you ever wanted and realizing it's a curse. There is a fascinating and obscure connection between Sanguine and Mephala found in the lore of the Morag Tong. In the Elder Scrolls III, Morrowind, players collect the Threads of the Web Spinner, 27 items enchanted by Sanguine for the Morag Tong, the Guild of Assassins. Why would the party prince help the Murder Guild? Because Sanguine covers dark passions. This includes the lust for blood, the thrill of the kill, and the ecstasy of violence. The Morag Tong worships Mephala, but they use Sanguine's tools. This implies that Sanguine understands that murder can be a form of release, a high just like skooma. It strips away the jovial drunk mask and reveals a prince who gets a kick out of any intense sensation, even if that sensation is the feeling of a blade sliding between ribs. This leads to a chilling fan theory. Sanguine is actually the most depressed entity in the Orbis. Think about it. He's ancient. He has seen everything, tasted everything, experienced every pleasure. And he is bored. The drinking contest, the pranks, the stripping of countesses. Remember his Oblivion quest? These are desperate attempts to feel something new. He's chasing the dragon of novelty. He drags mortals into his schemes because he needs our fresh, naive capacity for surprise to feel a vicarious thrill. We are the entertainment. He is the burnt-out rock star who needs to smash a hotel room just to feel alive. Let's talk about his artifact, the Sanguine Rose. In Skyrim, it summons a Dremora to fight for you. It's a powerful tool. But look at the symbolism. A rose is a symbol of romance and beauty, but it wilts quickly, and it has thorns. The staff doesn't give you power. It summons someone else to do the work. It encourages laziness. It encourages dependency. Instead of learning a spell or swinging a sword, you just wave a flower and let a demon handle your problems. It is the ultimate enabler artifact. It solves the immediate issue but stunts your growth as a hero. Plus, the Dremora it summons. They aren't happy to be there. They're often confused or annoyed. Sanguine is essentially prank-calling the Dremora, yanking them out of Oblivion to fight a mudcrab just for the lols. In Oblivion, his quest is even more revealing of his nature. He asks you to infiltrate a stuffy dinner party hosted by the Countess of Leowyn and cast a spell called Stark Reality. The spell strips everyone, including the Countess, naked. Sanguine finds this hilarious. It's a prank about social humiliation. He loves to puncture the balloon of civilized society. He wants to strip away the titles, the clothes, and the pretensions to show that underneath we are all just naked, shivering animals. It's funny to him, but it ruins the Countess's life. He destroys reputations for a giggle. The brutal truth about Sanguine is that he is the prince of the morning after. He is the embodiment of the consequences you try to ignore. He lures you in with the promise of a good time, but he leaves you with the headache, the empty wallet, and the shame. He represents the erosion of the will. Every time you say yes to Sanguine, it becomes harder to say no. He doesn't conquer you with armies. He conquers you by making you a slave to your own dopamine receptors. Consider the Deep Scorn Hollow DLC from Oblivion, a lair for an evil character. It features a shrine to Sithis, but also a garden of venom growth, and a servant who is a failed experiment of Sanguine. This implies Sanguine dabbles in twisting life forms just to see what happens. He isn't benevolent. He treats mortals like toys. If a toy breaks during play, he doesn't fix it. He just tosses it aside and finds a new drinking buddy. There is also a profound emptiness to his realm as depicted in Skyrim, the Misty Grove. It is beautiful, yes. Lanterns floating in the twilight, a long table set for a feast, water trickling peacefully. But who is there? Just you, Sanguine, and a few generic revelers who don't speak. It feels isolated. It feels lonely. It's a party of two in a void. It captures the specific loneliness of the alcoholic, sitting in a beautiful room, drinking the best wine, but completely disconnected from reality and genuine human connection. Sanguine proves that freedom without discipline is just another kind of cage. He offers you absolute freedom to do whatever you want, drink, fight, steal, love. But in doing so, you become a prisoner of your impulses. You cease to be a rational being and become a bundle of cravings. And Sanguine? He's just the bartender watching you drink yourself to death, smiling that charming devilish smile and charging it all to your tab. So, as we stumble out of the misty grove, shielding our eyes from the sudden return to harsh daylight, our head throbbing with the phantom hangover of 1,000 years, we leave the party prince behind. The laughter fades, but the feeling of nausea remains. We need to rest. We need to sleep. But be careful what you wish for, because the final leg of our journey takes us to the place where sleep is not a sanctuary but a crime scene. We are moving from the delirium of the drunkard to the delirium of the dreamer. The wine is gone, but the hallucinations are just beginning. Rub your eyes, find a comfortable pillow, or don't, it might be safer to stay awake, and prepare for the nightmare. We are going to visit the Dreamweaver. Rub your eyes, drink some water. That pounding headache from Sanguine's realm is starting to fade, replaced by a heaviness in your eyelids that feels almost magnetic. You want to lie down. You want to drift off. But here, in this final stretch of our journey, closing your eyes is the most dangerous thing you can do. We are leaving the loud, debauched parties of the Sanguine Rose and slipping into the silent, shifting shadows of the bedroom. We are entering the domain of Vaermina, the Dreamweaver, the Lady of Nightmares, the Prince of Psychological Terror. And if we are being brutally honest, Vaermina is the cosmic entity that proves privacy is a lie, because she is watching the one movie you can't turn off, your own subconscious. Vaermina is often underestimated because her sphere seems passive. Oh no, a bad dream, you say, reaching for your axe. I can handle that. But the brutal truth is that Vaermina doesn't just scare you, she robs you. She is the prince of memory theft. In the lore, dreams are not just random firings of neurons. They are the bridge to the orbis, the raw stuff of creation. When Vaermina invades your dreams, she isn't just watching. She is harvesting. She is reaching into your mind with icy fingers and pulling out the moments that define you, leaving you waking up feeling hollow, confused, and terrified of a threat you can't remember. The most potent example of this in the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim is the plight of Dawnstar. In the quest Waking Nightmare, we walk into a town that is collectively losing its mind. This isn't a plague of the body like Peryites, it is a plague of the spirit. Every single man, woman and child in Dawnstar is suffering from horrific nightmares every night. They are exhausted. They are irritable. The Jarl is paranoid. The entire social fabric of the town is disintegrating because no one can rest. This highlights Vaermina's true power. She destroys civilizations by attrition. She doesn't need to siege a city. She just needs to make sure the guards are too tired to lift their shields. When we investigate, we find the Skull of Corruption, her signature artifact. It has been feeding on the dreams of the populace to power itself. The mechanic of the staff is telling. To charge it, you have to cast it on a sleeping person. You are literally sucking the psychic energy out of a helpless victim to fuel your weapon. It turns the wielder into a parasite. And what does the staff do? It creates a clone of the target that attacks them. It weaponizes the self. It forces you to fight your own shadow. This is Vaermina's philosophy manifest. You are your own worst enemy, and she is just the director shouting, "Action!" But to understand the true horror of Vaermina, we have to look at her realm, Quagmire. Unlike Cold Harbour, which is a static ruin, or the Deadlands, which is a sea of fire, Quagmire is defined by instability. According to the lore book, The Doors of Oblivion, Quagmire changes every few minutes. One moment it is a dark castle with lightning flashing, the next it is a den of ravenous beasts, the next it is a swamp where the water turns to blood, the next it is a funeral for someone you love. It is a kaleidoscope of trauma. The torture of Quagmire isn't the pain, it's the anticipation. You can never adapt. You can never get comfortable. Vaermina keeps her victims in a state of perpetual, adrenaline-soaked anxiety, constantly shifting the ground beneath their feet so they can never find their balance. This connects to a fascinating and obscure piece of lore regarding her relationship with alchemy and time. In Waking Nightmare, we use a potion called Vaermina's Torpor. This isn't just a sleeping pill, it allows the Dragonborn to physically enter the memories of another person, specifically the priest Casimir, and travel back in time to alter the present. This is a staggering implication. It suggests that to Vaermina, dreams and memories are not just images, they are tangible places. She can preserve a moment in time like a fly in amber and allow others to walk around in it. She is the curator of lost time. But unlike Akatosh, who keeps time flowing, Vaermina freezes it in its worst moments. She traps you in the worst day of your life and forces you to live it on a loop. This leads to a compelling debate within the lore community, the rivalry between Vaermina and Hermaeus Mora. Both are hoarders of information. Mora hoards facts, books and history, the objective truth. Vaermina hoards dreams, memories and fears, the subjective truth. Fans argue that Vaermina possesses the emotional history of Tamriel. Mora knows what happened at the Battle of Red Mountain, but Vaermina knows what Nerevar felt when he died. She knows the terror, the betrayal, the sadness. The theory suggests that Vaermina is actually richer than Mora because facts are dry, but emotions are power. She feeds on the psychic residue of experience. This makes her the ultimate voyeur. She watches the intimate, terrifying theatre of the mortal mind and applauds the tragedies. It also implies that when you forget a dream upon waking, it's not biology. It's burglary. She took it. She added it to her collection, leaving you with nothing but a vague sense of unease. Let's also discuss her cultists. In the Elder Scrolls Online, the supernal dreamers are terrifying not because they are strong warriors, but because they are completely detached from reality. They believe that the waking world is the dream and Quagmire is the reality. They have been gaslit by a god. They mutilate themselves and others to wake them up into the nightmare. Vaermina breaks the fundamental mechanism we use to determine what is real. If you can't trust your eyes, and you can't trust your mind, you're completely defenseless. She doesn't just defeat you, she undoes you. There is a subtle, disturbing element to her appearance as well. She's often depicted as an old, crone or a witch, wearing elaborate robes and holding a staff, but her voice, in Skyrim and Isso, is often soothing, almost maternal. She speaks like a mother telling a bedtime story, but the story is about you being eaten by wolves. This dissonance is key. She exploits the comfort of the bed. The bed is supposed to be our sanctuary, the one place we are safe. Vaermina violates that sanctuary. She turns the pillow into a suffocating weight. She ensures that there is nowhere to hide because you cannot hide from your own head. Furthermore, consider the omen of the Watcher. Vaermina often uses omens, spirits that latch onto individuals and drive them to depravity through bad dreams. In Eso, we see an omen tormenting the High King Emmerich. It didn't attack him physically, it just whispered to him while he slept, showing him failures, showing him betrayals that never happened. It weakened a king without ever drawing a sword. Vaermina is the master of political destabilization through psychological warfare. She can topple an empire just by making sure the emperor hasn't slept in 3 weeks. She proves that a tired mind is a pliable mind. The brutal truth about Vaermina is that she represents our inability to escape our past. Dreams are often recycled memories, traumas replaying themselves. Vaermina ensures we never move on. She picks at the scab. She forces us to look at the things we buried. She's the manifestation of PTSD in the Elder Scrolls universe. She's the voice at 3 a.m. reminding you of that embarrassing thing you said 5 years ago, or that terrible mistake you made, magnifying it until it consumes your entire world, and the skull of corruption. It's not just a cool staff, it's a violation. When you use it, you're stealing the only peace those people have. You're stealing their recovery. You're participating in Vaermina's cycle of abuse. The game rewards you for becoming a nightmare to others. It's a subtle corruption, not of the body, but of empathy. You stop seeing people as people. You see them as batteries to be drained while they sleep. So, as we stand at the edge of the waking world, looking into the swirling purple mists of quagmire, we realize the terrifying scope of her power. She doesn't want your soul. She wants your peace of mind. She wants to live rent-free in your head forever. And the scariest part? You have to sleep eventually. You can drink coffee, you can cast restoration spells, you can stand guard all night, but sooner or later your eyes will close, and when they do, she will be waiting. We have walked a long road together tonight, traveller. We have stepped through the cold, blue fires of Molag Bal's domination, and weathered the scorching, chaotic winds of Mehrunes Dagon's ambition. We have navigated the treacherous, whispered webs of Mephala and shielded our eyes from the blinding, unyielding judgment of Meridia's light. We have feasted with Sanguine until we felt sick, and we have huddled in the dark with Namira until we felt, well, something else entirely. From the ash-choked pits of Malacath to the shifting, terrifying dreams of Vaermina, we have looked into the faces of the entities that rule the void, and we have seen the brutally honest truths reflecting back at us. They are not just monsters under the bed. They are the mirrors of our own darkest impulses, our greed, our rage, our desire for control, and our fear of being forgotten. But now, the journey is done. The portal is closing. The swirling colours of Oblivion are fading into a soft, steady grey. The screams, the whispers, and the manic laughter are drifting away, replaced by the quiet, rhythmic hum of the room around you. You are safe here. The Daedra are locked away in their realms, bound by laws and liminal barriers that hold them fast. They are just stories now, words floating in the dark, unable to touch you. Let your shoulders drop, unclench your jaw. Let the tension of the adventure drain out of your body, sinking into the mattress beneath you. The fires are out. The hunt is over. The library is closed. There is nothing left to fight, nothing left to bargain for, and nothing left to fear. The only thing that matters now is the stillness, the quiet, and the heavy, comfortable warmth of sleep. Drift away from the void. Let the darkness be just darkness, soft, velvety, and kind. Sweet dreams,